Chapter 1912. Jinshan caught the space ring that the Grand Imperial Protector tossed over and sent the senses of his soul into check. There were only two items in the space ring, which were divine crystals and pills. However, both the divine crystals and pills were piled up like mountains. There were so many of them that they were stacked neatly. In particular, the divine crystals that had been piled up into a small mountain were so numerous that even Jinshan became amazed. I'm afraid there are at least 1 billion divine crystals here, or even more. Jinshan was secretly surprised. Even though he was used to seeing divine crystals, he could not help but be shocked when he saw such a tremendous amount. The only pity was that the divine crystals were all low-grade divine crystals. As a result, 1 billion low-grade divine crystals was only equivalent to 10 million mid-grade divine crystals or 100,000 high-grade divine crystals. 10,000 divine crystals were equivalent to a block of high-grade divine crystals. So 100,000 high-grade divine crystals were equivalent to 10 blocks of high-grade divine crystals. This was equivalent to the entire wealth of most Overgod clans. Moreover, the healing pills that had also piled up into a mountain were the same as the divine crystals. They were not of particularly high grade, but they possessed extremely obvious effects. The divine crystals were used to compensate for the losses of the provincial city and to rebuild it. Clearly, the healing pills were for the people who had been injured in the battle. Jinshan understood from the items in the space ring that the Grand Imperial Protector had come prepared. He had prepared everything beforehand. After all, gathering such a tremendous amount of resources was not something that could be done in a short amount of time. Jinshan held the space ring silently for a while before saying, "Since the Grand Imperial Protector has asked for mercy, I'll let this matter slide for now. However, while you can avoid death, you still need to be punished. Even if you're protectors of the Earth Spirit sect, you still need to pay a price for destroying my dong and province." With that, Jinshan extended his finger, and in a single moment, 6 strands of sword chi shot towards the foreheads of 6 of them. Every single strand of sword chi was the size of a needle. The protectors were trapped, so they were unable to dodge Jinshan's attack at all, let alone block it. The sword chi easily pierced through their skin, piercing through their foreheads and into their heads, injuring their primordial spirits. The 6 heavily injured protectors could not help but cry out in pain. They were all haggard and extremely weak. Jinshan had controlled the strength of the sword chi perfectly, injuring them but not killing them. It would be extremely difficult for them to recover from the injuries to their souls, unless there was a heavenly material or earthly treasure that specialized in healing wounds of the primordial spirit, or a healing panacea. However, both of these items were extremely valuable. You've actually injured our souls. Once our master comes, he definitely won't spare you. The woman with the fan stared at Jinshan in resentment as she said through gritted teeth. The other protectors also stared at Jinshan furiously. From their gazes, they were basically tempted to drink Jinshan's blood and eat Jinshan's flesh. The only protector who had not taken part in the battle had become utterly terrified. He dared not say anything at all. Perhaps it was because he had not taken action, so Jinshan did not target him specifically and did not injure his soul. Afterwards, Jinshan removed the restraints of the primordial god Silk, allowing the 7 protectors to regain their freedom. The Grand Imperial Protector glanced at the black-robed Shunjin deeply before glancing at Master Chanlong, who stood before Kea in the provincial city. Afterwards, he left with the 7 protectors. Wayneryan naturally did not stay behind either. He left with the Grand Imperial Protector. His seniors had stood up for him, but they were all heavily injured in the end, so he had to go and take care of them. The 2 gods from the Wayner clan naturally did not remain in the provincial city after seeing how the Earth Spirit sect had caused such a great disturbance. They followed Wayner Yin to the royal city. The provincial city recovered its peace once again. However, the ripples of energy from the battle from before still lingered in the air. Wild winds whistled through the air above the provincial city. Jinshan turned around and looked at the damaged city walls. He could not help but sigh as a sliver of helplessness appeared on his face. At this moment, Mo Ling, Ando, Fu, Nanyan Tong, and the other gods flew out from the city. They all gathered beside Jianshun as they stared at Jianshun in admiration and admiration. Houston, Siyu, Xiao Jin, Xiao Ling, Rui Jin, Blackfish, Honglian, and so on emerged from the Forbidden Grounds as well. They also gathered over. However, Shangwan Mu did not appear. "Brother, are we just going to let them go like this?" Siyu asked. He was extremely unwilling to just let them go. Powerful battle intent radiated from him without any restraint. "Sob, sob, they're just too bad. They've destroyed our home." Xiao Ling sobbed like a child who had been wronged. Her face was filled with heartache. The other people all expressed their concern as well. "The matter between us and the Earth Spirit sect hasn't ended yet. Let's all return first," Jianshun said to everyone. He knew extremely well that the larger a sect was, the more they cared about their reputation. Today, the 7 protectors of the Earth Spirit sect had actually been defeated by an over-god clan in a backwater place, like the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. They probably would not just let this matter go. What happened today was just the beginning. Jianshun directly went to find Kea in the provincial city. He felt extremely mixed emotions as he looked at Master Chanlong, who stood beside Kea. He knew that if it were not for Master Chanlong's protection, Kea would have probably died. Master Chanlong had saved Kea's life today. "Chanlong, no matter what, I still have to thank you for what happened today," Jianshun said to Chanlong. Chanlong said calmly, "This has nothing to do with you. Old man was only protecting his friend." Afterwards, Master Chanlong looked at Kea. He said with a gentler voice, "Kea, the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion are about to attack the divine kingdom of Pingtian. It's no longer safe for you to remain here. Why don't you leave with me?" "Chanlong, although I thank you for saving Kea, don't even think about leaving with Kea. Otherwise, I can only make you stay." Before Kea could reply, Jianshun spoke first. He spoke firmly, leaving no room for negotiation. He would never allow Kea to leave with someone he had just met. Moreover, he always felt like Master Chanlong had ulterior motives for treating Kea, who was only as strong as the Holy Emperor, as a mighty late overgod, ignoring the great difference in strength. Just how long had the 2 of them known each other? Moreover, there was a 7-colored heaven-devouring beast by Kea's side willingly. He even suspected that Master Chanlong had recognized the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast as a divine beast, which was why he had come into contact with Kea. "Jianshun, I admit that your strength is no longer the same as before, but if old man wants to leave, you won't be able to stop the old man," Master Chanlong replied firmly as he showed no fear either. "Chanlong, Jianshun, stop arguing," Jianshun said. Kea hurriedly stepped forward to stop them when he saw the atmosphere between the 2 of them become more and more tense. He was afraid that the 2 of them would start fighting again. "Chanlong, thank you for saving me, but Jianshun is the most important friend in my life right now. I won't leave him," Kea said seriously. Master Chanlong looked at Kea with brimming interest. After staring at him for a while, he finally sighed gently. "Whatever. Since you've chosen to stay, I won't force you." Master Chanlong no longer said anything more. He turned around and made his way out of the provincial city, leaving the provincial city. Jianshun watched him leave just like that. He did not stop him at all. No matter what, Chanlong had saved Kea's life, so he could not continue to deal with him. "How strange. I've clearly never seen you before, but why do I feel a sense of familiarity?" Kea was still extremely confused as he stared at Master Chanlong's back. He returned to the Tianyuan family, with Jianshun in confusion. Chapter 19:13. In the Tianyuan family, Jianshun gathered all the elders in the clan for a meeting. After ordering them to deal with the problems of rebuilding the provincial city and the aftermath, he passed the space ring the Grand Imperial Protector had given him to Mo Ling. He got Mo Ling, Ando, Fu, Nanyan Tong, and the other elders to take care of the repairs. All the losses that the shops suffered this time would be deducted from the space ring the Grand Imperial Protector had given him. In addition, even those who were injured would be given healing panacea. None of them were left out. Depending on the severity of their injuries, they would receive different amounts of healing panacea. In short, the items that the Grand Imperial Protector had given to Jianshan to make up for the losses in the provincial city had all been distributed by Jianshan. Not only was there nothing left, but the Tianyuan family had also given away quite a lot of divine crystals and healing pills. The Tianyuan family had basically shown the utmost care to the people of the provincial city during this matter, which immediately won them great praise. As a result, everyone in the city felt respect and love for the Tianyuan family from the bottom of their hearts. At the same time, the news of the battle between the Tianyuan family and the 7 protectors of the Earth Spirit sect spread like wildfire in an extremely short amount of time. It caused an uproar in many divine kingdoms in the surroundings before reaching the Heavenly Moon Empire in the end. It even spread even further. This piece of news was just too shocking to many people. Not only had a clan with an overgod managed to fend off the attacks of the 7 protectors of the Earth Spirit sect, but they had even emerged victorious in the end, achieving an extremely glorious result. In particular, the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianshan, fought against 2 late overgods of the Earth Spirit sect all by himself. Not only did he not lose the upper hand, but he even achieved victory in a crushing manner. He was completely unscathed, defeating his opponents without being injured. Many people believed that the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan possessed the strength to make it onto the Overgod's plaque with this strength. It was also because of this that Jianshan gradually became an influential figure in the nearby region. The Overgod's plaque recorded the 3,000 most powerful overgods across the 49 Great Plains and 81 Great Planets of the Saints' World. Once someone made it onto the Overgod's plaque, their status would skyrocket. Many large organizations and sects would fight over them. Even some extremely ancient organizations would extend an olive branch to them. Without any exaggeration, once someone made it onto the Overgod's plaque, they would become an influential figure across the entire Saints' World. Their names would appear on all the Overgod's plaques across the 49 Great Plains and 81 Great Planets. Everyone would see them. It was rumored that Jianshan possessed the strength to make it onto the Overgod's plaque, so he would naturally receive the attention and discussion of many people. As a matter of fact, a few large organizations had already secretly paid attention to him. However, as the person involved, Jianshan had no idea about the disturbance he had caused. He currently locked himself up in a gloomy room deep underground. He held a fist-sized monster core in his hand as he constantly absorbed the energy within it. The monster core was one of the overgod monster cores he had obtained from the Een Mountains of Seven's Despair. Aside from that, there were a few other monster cores. They were all at the level of overgods. After heavily injuring the protector of the Earth's Spirit sect, Jianshan could foresee that the days ahead would not be peaceful. Now that he had enough resources, he obviously wanted to use this time to increase his strength so that his chaotic body could break through as soon as possible and reach a new level. The repair of the provincial city progressed extremely smoothly while Jianshan was in seclusion. Many Origin Realm experts personally worked, and there were even deities who took part. They all used their abilities, so the repair of the provincial city progressed extremely quickly. In just 3 days, 70% of the damaged city had been repaired. At the same time, 3 special guests were received in the Imperial Palace of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. The Grand Imperial Protector personally went to receive them. He invited the 3 of them into the Imperial Palace with a huge smile on his face. He arranged for them to stay in a dazzling hall. Esteemed guests, I'll have to trouble you to stay in the Evergreen Hall for now. If there's anything you're dissatisfied with, please let me know. The Grand Imperial Protector clasped his fist at the 3 of them. He smiled from ear to ear and was extremely polite. Thank you, Grand Imperial Protector. The 3 of them also clasped their fists at the Grand Imperial Protector politely. They were amiable and did not put on any airs at all. The Grand Imperial Protector left after escorting them to their destination. Meanwhile, the 3 of them entered the dazzling hall. As soon as he entered the hall, he saw the 7 protectors of the Earth Spirit sect standing there politely. 6 of them had yet to fully recover from their injuries, and they had even injured their souls. As a result, all of them were pale, haggard, and weak. Aside from the 7 of them, Wayner Yin happened to be among them as well. He stood in a neat row with the 7 of them. Disciple greets Master, Elder Ma, and Elder Fong. The 7 protectors of the Earth Spirit sect and Wayner Yin all bowed towards the 3 of them. They were extremely respectful, and there was a hint of uneasiness and uneasiness in their expressions. The 3 elders from the Earth Spirit sect were no longer as amicable as when they faced the Grand Imperial Protector. Their faces sank rapidly as they gave off a sense of pressure without being angry. At the same time, they gave off an extremely tremendous presence that was as vast as the ocean, causing the 8 overgods to shiver in fear. "Humph, a bunch of useless things," the middle-aged man on the left said coldly. He stared at them with a sunken face, as if he expected better from them. "There's a total of 8 of you, 8 overgods. Every single one of you knows the battle skills of the sect. That's enough to crush all the overgods working together in the divine kingdom of Pingtian, yet you were defeated by a clan with a mere overgod. You've completely embarrassed our Earth Spirit sect. And the sect master has learned about this as well. He's very angry. Tell me, how should I explain this to the sect master? Should I say that I'm useless? Or that you're useless? Or that the opponent you faced was just too powerful?" The protectors of the Earth Spirit sect were utterly embarrassed by the middle-aged man's scolding. They stood there blankly, unable to utter a single word. They knew that not only had their failure embarrassed them, but had also embarrassed the entire Earth Spirit sect. At the same time, they had embarrassed their master. "Elder Mu, what's done is done. It's useless for you to be angry. Your disciples are still injured. It's better to let them heal first." Elder Ma, who was standing in the middle, interceded. The 3 elders were all middle-aged men, but they seemed to follow Elder Ma's lead. "Tell me, is the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan really that capable? How can he injure you like that?" Elder Fong spoke as well. His voice was extremely gentle, like he was bathing in a spring breeze. "Elder Fong, Jinshin is indeed very powerful. Although Protector Gong and I clashed with him a few times, we failed to injure him at all. He basically completely crushed our combined strength. And I can even sense that the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan hasn't even used his full strength," Protector Wu bowed. "Senior Wu is right. Jinshin is indeed very powerful. Even with my strength as a mid-overgod, I wasn't his opponent in a single strike. Junior Yin has only just broken through to mid-overgod and has grasped the laws of strength, one of the most powerful offensive techniques, yet he was also defeated by Jinshin in a single strike." The person who spoke this time was the woman with the fan. After that, she looked at Elder Mu in a pleading manner and said pitifully, "Master, Jinshin is just too despicable. I was nailed to the walls by a single strike from Jinshin. You have to stand up for me. Please destroy Jinshin and destroy the Tianyuan family. Jinshin is very powerful, but he's just an ant in Master's hands. You can crush him effortlessly. Please take action, Master. Please avenge us and make our Earth Spirit sect famous," another woman said. The other female protector also asked for help. She knew that she was not Jinshin's opponent with her strength, so she could only ask for her master's help. Elder Mu's face sank. He snorted coldly. "Do you think you haven't embarrassed yourselves enough? You can't beat him, yet you want me, the mighty divine king, to deal with an overgod. There'll probably be people pointing fingers at me the next day after I destroy the Tianyuan family. Do you think you can redeem the dignity of our Earth Spirit sect just like that? You're just idiots." Elder Mu was so angry that his chest heaved violently. Now, he regretted not accepting these people as his disciples. A while later, Elder Mu slowly calmed down. A vicious light suddenly flashed through his eyes, and he said coldly, "However, the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan defeated you and humiliated our Earth Spirit sect. We've become a laughingstock, but he has become famous because of this. Since he dares to use the name of our Earth Spirit sect to increase his fame, we need to make him pay the price. We just need to use a different method. The current divine kingdom of Pingtian is no longer the divine kingdom of Pingtian of the past." Elder Fong nodded in agreement after hearing that. He crossed his arms and said leisurely, "That's right. With our identities, it's not suitable for us to kill our way into the Tianyuan family. Let's not even talk about how other people will mock us after we destroy the Tianyuan family. Just the divine kingdom of Pingtian won't allow something like that to happen. We need to use a method that won't make us a laughingstock when we destroy the Tianyuan family. No matter what, my Earth Spirit sect is a renowned sect in the southern region. How can I just let some random person step on the name of my Earth Spirit sect and let his name spread far and wide?" Chapter 19:14. Time passed silently. Naturally, the news of the 3 divine king realm elders of the Earth Spirit sect arriving in Pingtian City could not be kept a secret. The divine kingdom of Pingtian took the initiative to spread the news, calming down the countless people who had become unsettled due to the invasion of the heavenly demon religion. However, the arrival of the 3 divine king realm elders led to another wave of discussion. Many people discussed whether the 3 divine king realm experts of the Earth Spirit sect would personally come and seek justice for the protectors of the Earth Spirit sect who had been injured by Jianshan. Discussions like this swept through the entire divine kingdom. In particular, the Tianyuan family became heavy-hearted when they heard the news. They immediately entered a state of high vigilance. However, in the end, the 3 divine king realm experts of the Earth Spirit sect rarely showed themselves after entering the imperial palace. They did not do what everyone had expected, where they personally went to look for the Tianyuan family regardless of their status. The people of the Tianyuan family naturally became relieved with this outcome. They secretly felt fortunate. As time went on, more and more large organizations sent reinforcements. They all gathered in the imperial palace of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Aside from the Earth Spirit sect, the heavenly moon empire that was closest to the divine kingdom of Pingtian, the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds, another sect that stood on the same level as the Earth Spirit sect, had sent 3 divine king realm elders. The imperial family of the heavenly moon empire also sent reinforcements. 2 subjects had come, and they traveled through the streets of the imperial capital in a luxurious carriage. The imperial capital of the divine kingdom of Pingtian was now filled with people. Many large organizations in the southern region had come to reinforce it. Some of the residents who lived in the imperial city could clearly feel the oppressive pressure coming from the imperial palace, which made them feel intimidated at first glance. A few days later, groups of envoys left the imperial palace with lightning speed. They hurried to the 6 provincial cities as quickly as they could to pass on the divine king's orders and summon all the overgods. The Tianyuan family naturally received the decree from the special envoy, but they were all troubled in their hearts and frowned. The patriarch is still in seclusion. What do we do? Should we wake him up? Mo Ling, Ando Fu, Nanyan Tong, and the other elders were at a loss. This was because when Jianshan was in seclusion, he had warned them not to disturb his seclusion unless it was a matter of life and death for the family. How can an audience with the divine king be more important than my brother's cultivation? His seclusion, this time, is extremely important to my brother. Do not disturb him. Siyu emerged from the forbidden grounds at this moment and said coldly. He possessed a sense of pride that originated from his very bones. He did not treat the divine king's summons seriously at all. But the divine king has ordered the patriarch to hurry to the imperial palace in 3 days. If he doesn't go, Mo Ling and Ando Fu were troubled. If my brother doesn't emerge from seclusion in 3 days, send someone to the imperial city and tell the divine king that my brother is at a critical juncture in his seclusion. So he can't go, Siyu said firmly. This, Mo Ling and Ando Fu looked at each other. At this moment, Jianshan sat in a secret room deep underground. He held a fist-sized monster core in his hand as he constantly absorbed the essence within it. This was already the 3rd overgod monster core he had absorbed. The 2 before had provided him with extremely powerful and pure essence. The chaotic Naiden in his Dantian had already reached the major achievement of the 10th layer of the chaotic body. He was close to breaking through. If I've guessed correctly, as long as I absorb the monster core in my hand, my chaotic Naiden will reach its limit and explode. At that time, it'll be time for me to condense the 11th layer. Once my chaotic body reaches the 11th layer, it means that I possess battle prowess on par with the Divine King. Although I can't be completely free from the threat of the heavenly demon religion with that strength, I'll be able to protect myself a little better at the very least. Jinshin's head churned as he felt some eagerness. However, in the next moment, he cast aside all other thoughts and became completely immersed in cultivation. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Jinshin still did not emerge from seclusion. With no other choice, the Tianyuan family could only contact the people they had arranged in the imperial city beforehand. At this moment, the experts from the various ancient empires and organizations gathered in a majestic hall within the imperial palace. There were so many of them, several hundred in total. None of them were overgods. Just the Divine King experts among them amounted to over 20. With so many Divine Kings gathered together, the presence they gave off was heavy and terrifying, causing the air in the hall to seem to freeze. Only overgods possessed the ability to remain there under such pressure. Gods were unable to approach them at all. This was even after they had purposefully concealed their presences. Otherwise, the pressure from the terrifying presences of over 20 Divine King experts would be so great that even many overgods would not be able to endure it. Just the Heavenly Moon Empire made up 8 of the 20 or so Divine King experts. The remaining dozen or so came from the other 3 ancient empires. 4 of the 6 ancient empires of the southern region had already sent people to reinforce them. As the Heavenly Moon Empire was the closest to the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian, they would become the one that faced the greatest threat from the heavenly demon religion once the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian fell. As a result, the Heavenly Moon Empire had sent the most people. At the very top of the group, the Divine King sat boldly on his throne in his dragon robes. He glanced past the experts gathered below as he thanked them with a gentle voice and a smile. The Divine King experts below did not put on any airs at all. They all smiled as they exchanged pleasantries with the Divine King extremely politely. Their words were filled with flattery. It said that an impressive overgod has appeared in the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. He easily defeated 2 late overgods from the Earth Spirit sect. Your Majesty, it's impossible for the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian to not become powerful with such an outstanding talent, said a middle-aged man at this moment. He glanced past the 3 elders of the Earth Spirit sect as a profound smile appeared on his face. The middle-aged man was also a Divine King from the Heavenly Moon Empire. He was an elder of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds in the Heavenly Moon Empire. His name was Songge. It said that the 2 late overgods have been carefully nurtured by the Earth Spirit sect. Not only do they possess powerful battle skills and peak cultivation methods, but they're only a step away from becoming a Divine King as well. It's just a pity that the 2 late overgods of the Earth Spirit sect were unable to harm them at all. I wonder who their master is. He's actually so useless, and his disciples are so weak. As soon as Songge finished speaking, a young man immediately added. He looked at the people from the Earth Spirit sect in a provocative manner. The young man was also an elder of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds in the Heavenly Moon Empire. His name was Chang Bufan. Haha, looks like the talent of this generation of disciples from the Earth Spirit sect really isn't anything special. Otherwise, it's like Elder Chang has said, their master is just too useless. The 3rd elder of the Taoist sect of Calm Cloud said as well. He looked at the 3 elders of the Earth Spirit sect in a provocative manner. The faces of the 3 elders from the Earth Spirit sect were extremely sunken. Although their Earth Spirit sect was one of the 2 great sects of the Heavenly Moon Empire, along with the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds, their relationship was not harmonious. They constantly fought openly and covertly, suppressing each other. Chapter 19:15. It said that Jinshin possesses the strength to make it onto the Overgod's plaque. Out of the countless Overgods in the Saints' world, there are only 3,000 people like that. Every single one of them is extremely powerful among those at the same level of cultivation. They're supreme prodigies nurtured by peak organizations. Although our Earth Spirit sect possesses a certain level of strength, It's only limited to the southern region of the cloud plain. How can we compare to the supreme prodigies nurtured by peak organizations? Elder Mu stood up and said righteously. As the master of Wainer Yin and the other protectors, he had to stand out and say a few words to save the dignity of the Earth Spirit sect as much as possible after being mocked by the elders of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds. He had to protect his own dignity. Afterwards, Elder Mu stared at the three elders coldly. He said with a sunken face, "If you think that old man's disciple is useless, you're welcome to have the disciple you're most proud of fight against Jianshan. Let's see whether your disciple is Jianshan's opponent among overgods. If your disciple defeats Jianshan, then old man will admit that his disciple is useless." That's right. You people of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds better watch your mouth. You better have your disciple fight against the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan first. It won't be too late for you to criticize our Earth Spirit sect after you achieve victory. Haha, I'm just afraid that the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds won't have the courage to do that, because they themselves understand that even if they turn over all the overgods in the sect, they won't be able to find a disciple who can defeat the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan. They'll only have a chance at victory if they form a killing formation with many overgods. However, our Earth Spirit sect will be able to achieve victory easily if that's the case. The two other elders of the Earth Spirit sect did not want to fall behind either. They all retorted. Today, the Divine King realm experts of several empires had gathered here. They needed to clear the name of the Earth Spirit sect under these circumstances. As a result, even though the three of them were very reluctant, they were forced to push Jianshan's strength onto the Overgod's plaque. If the protectors of the Earth Spirit sect were defeated by experts on the Overgod's plaque, it would not be embarrassing at all, let alone their Earth Spirit sect and Taoist sect of Calm Clouds. None of the organizations that had come today possessed such a prodigy who could take on the Overgod's plaque. However, the three elders of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds laughed aloud when they heard what the three elders had said. Sangge stared at the three elders like they were idiots and sneered. Our Taoist sect of Calm Clouds isn't as domineering as your Earth Spirit sect, taking the initiative to become enemies with the people on the Overgod's plaque. Our Taoist sect of Calm Clouds would rather rope in a prodigy like that, so why would we take the initiative to offend him? Only a brainless idiot would do something like that. Elder Song Ji's words made the three elders of the Earth Spirit sect flush with anger. Fury surged within them. Below, the expressions of the protectors of the Earth Spirit sect were ugly as well. This was because the trouble they had caused the three elders of their sect to be openly humiliated by the people of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds. This filled them with resentment and shame. Patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, Jianshan, all of this happened because of you. Chun Chun, will remember you. I will pay you back 1,000 times over for the humiliation my Earth Spirit sect has suffered in public today. The woman with the fan stood in the center of the crowd as her eyes were extremely cold. At that moment, her killing intent towards Jianshan had truly reached an unprecedented level. The experts in the hall all watched on as if they were watching a show. This was a grievance between the Earth Spirit sect and the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds. It had no conflict of interest with them, so they naturally would not interfere. Moreover, as long as there was no great conflict of interest, even a large organization like theirs would not offend any overgod who made it onto the overgod's plaque for no reason. This was because if people like them developed successfully, they would become figures who could reign over an entire region in the future if nothing unexpected happened. However, quite a few people became very interested in the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, Jianshan. I never thought that in just a few decades, Jianshan would have already become a figure on the Overgod's plaque. Wainer Yin was in the crowd as well. He was gathered with a group of overgods as he listened to the evaluations of Jianshan from the elders of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds and the Earth Spirit sect. All right, may I ask if the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan is here? Please show yourself. The three of us are filled with admiration for the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan. Suddenly, an elder of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds said to the group of overgods below. He smiled and spoke politely as he glanced around the crowd. With that, Many of the elders from the various organizations looked towards the group of overgods. Their faces were filled with curiosity. Only the 3 elders of the Earth Spirit sect sat there with pale faces. They were furious inside. However, under the watchful eyes of the elders from the various major forces, no one stepped forward. At this moment, an elder of the Tianyuan family entered the hall under the lead of the Royal Divine Army. He told the Divine King that Jianshun was unable to come. Everyone came to a realization when they heard that. They did not pay too much attention to it. However, the 3 elders of the Earth Spirit sect naturally resented Jianshun after being mocked by the people of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds. Elder Mu immediately snorted coldly. Jianshun sure is haughty. He actually dares to be absent at such an important time. Does he think he's a supreme divine king who has made it onto the divine king's throne? He actually dares to look down on all of us. Since Jianshun possesses the strength to make it onto the Overgod's plaque, he definitely won't be an ordinary person when he reaches the level of the divine king. He does have a right to look down on all of us. However, 3 days ago, the divine emperor clearly sent down a divine decree, yet he actually dared to not come. He's not taking the divine emperor seriously at all, said Elder Fong from the Earth Spirit sect calmly. Not only did his words push Jianshun to stand against all the elders present, but it also dragged the divine king into the matter. The divine king elders gathered there all sat where they were calmly. Their faces did not change at all. They were not moved at all. Naturally, they understood that the people of the Earth Spirit sect were purposefully targeting Jianshun. They wanted to use everyone's influence to suppress Jianshun. However, with their status and experience, how could they be swayed by a few words from an elder of the Earth Spirit sect and be led around by the nose? Chapter 1916. The absence of the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianshun, clearly did not affect the meeting at all. As a matter of fact, many people did not take it to heart. None of the experts gathered here today belonged to the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Jianshun's absence in such an important meeting was not a disgrace to them, but to the divine king. After all, the divine king was the true ruler of the divine kingdom. However, the divine king did not seem to care at all. If a regular overgod was absent from such an important meeting, he definitely would have been displeased and become furious. However, Jianshun held a rather special position in his heart. Time passed silently. Unknowingly, half a month had already passed. In the provincial city of the Dong and province, the Tianyuan family behaved as usual. The battle that was about to erupt at the border of the divine kingdom of Pingtian did not seem to affect them too much. However, everyone in the clan remained on high alert during this period of time. The teleportation formation in the forbidden grounds of the back courtyard was ready to be activated at any time. At this moment, a tremendous pressure suddenly radiated from underground in the forbidden grounds of the Tianyuan family. In just a single instance, it enveloped the entire place and rapidly expanded outwards. At this critical moment, the formations set up in the forbidden grounds were activated. Layers upon layers of formations enveloped the entire forbidden grounds, isolating the powerful presence and sealing it firmly within the forbidden grounds. In the forbidden grounds, Xiao Jin, Xiaoling, Houston, Siyu, Shengwanmu Ruijin, Blackfish, Honglian, and Xiongzhong from the world of Forsaken Saints were all gathered together. They all stared at Kea, who stood in the center with their mouths agape. All of them were filled with great shock and disbelief. The appearance of the presence immediately attracted their attention. Only then did they shift their gazes away from Kea and look towards the depths of the forbidden grounds, towards the door that led underground. Brother's strength has broken through again, Siyu murmured in a low voice. His expression was filled with joy. Big brother has come out of seclusion. Is he going to leave the clan again? Xiao Ling said in a clear voice, her face full of reluctance. Everyone immediately left the place and headed for Jianshun's seclusion. They were all looking forward to seeing how strong Jianshun would be after his breakthrough. After all, Jianshun was already invincible among overgods before he broke through. It was even rumored that he could be ranked on the tablet of the 3,000 Divine King. In the deepest part of the forbidden area in the backyard of the Tianyuan family, the door that led directly to the depths of the underground slowly opened, finally revealing Jinshin's figure. He had formally reached the 11th layer of the chaotic body now. His entire body was filled with explosive power. This power gave Jinshin great confidence, allowing him to directly challenge Divine King experts. Divine King experts were existences that stood at the apex of the Divine Kingdoms. There were only a handful of them in the vast Divine Kingdoms. Even in the empires, Divine King experts were great figures who could do whatever they wanted. Yet now, Jinshin felt like his current battle prowess could rival the Divine King. Perhaps it was because he had just broken through, but he was still unable to control his presence as he wished. Naturally, a tremendous pressure radiated from him. The pressure was so great that the air had basically come to a standstill. Many people waiting outside the secret room found it difficult to breathe, as if they were suffocating. It was as if, at this very moment, they weren't facing a person, but a towering mountain that was unattainable. Merely facing it made them feel insignificant. Is this an over-god or the Divine King? That was the thought that crossed the minds of many people at that moment. In particular, Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish felt amazed when they saw Jinshin. It could be said that the three of them had personally witnessed Jinshin grow from a puny saint ruler to his current level. Jinshin, you finally emerged. You better check on Kea, Shangguanmu, or it was said in a hurry. Shangguanmu, or said with some urgency. There was some shock and disbelief in her voice as well. Jinshin immediately looked at Kea when he heard that, but in the next moment, his eyes suddenly narrowed. He was also filled with disbelief. How is this possible? Kea, you've actually broken through from the Holy Emperor realm to reciprocity in half a month, Jinshin cried out as if he had seen a ghost. Half a month ago, Kea was still at the Holy Emperor realm, yet half a month later, she had actually broken through receival and returnance, reaching reciprocity. She was even at late reciprocity. The speed was so fast that Jinshin felt like he was dreaming. He struggled to believe such a reality. Kea was also extremely doubtful as to why her cultivation speed was so fast. She said in bewilderment, "I don't know what's going on either. All I know is that when I woke up, I found it extremely easy to cultivate. I didn't encounter any bottlenecks, and I absorbed the origin energy in divine crystals extremely quickly. I can absorb all of it in just a few seconds. Is it because you ingested those heavenly resources?" The only reason that Jinshin could think of after hearing Kea's explanation was that Kea had ingested a god-tier heavenly resource. However, the Void Cloud Flower's greatest effect was healing the soul. Its effects on increasing cultivation were negligible. It should not have been able to increase Kea's strength by leaps and bounds. Even if the Void Cloud Flower could increase cultivation, it should not have been able to increase it so quickly. In just half a month, a Holy Emperor had broken through consecutively, all the way to late reciprocity. All right, Jinshin, I've already grasped the power of laws. If it weren't for the fact that I've used up all my divine crystals, I think I would have become a deity already. With that, the power of laws gathered and wrapped around Kea, causing her to flicker with black light. She was enveloped by a layer of black light. This is the laws of destruction. Jinshin cried out as he became stunned. Disbelief filled his face. He was not the only one. Everyone in the surroundings became dumbfounded when Kea's power of laws appeared. They all stared at the laws of destruction that revolved around Kea in a daze as their hearts churned. God-tier laws. How is this possible? Jinshin became dazed. At that moment, his shock had reached its limit. In just half a month, not only had Kea's cultivation increased by an unbelievable amount, but her comprehension of laws was unbelievable as well. The power of laws was the key to godhood. There were countless Origin Realm experts trapped in the Saint's world, and there were even some people who would not be able to comprehend the laws even after spending their entire lives trying to reach godhood. This was more than enough to demonstrate just how difficult it was to comprehend the power of laws. However, not only had Kea comprehended the power of laws so easily, But the laws of destruction she had displayed had completely exceeded the level of deities, reaching the level of gods. If news of this made it out, let alone the entire cloud plain, even the entire saint's world would be shaken up. Kaya, how did you do this? How did your comprehension of laws suddenly reach such a level? Jianshan asked as his heart trembled. Chapter 1917. She grasped the laws naturally. Jianshan was stunned. He was very surprised. It was extremely difficult for others to comprehend laws. Even for him, it would be extremely difficult for him to reach the next level with the laws of the sword. However, from what Kaya had said, it seemed like comprehending laws was an extremely easy matter. It was effortless. Even the supreme prodigies nurtured by large sects and clans would not be able to achieve something like that. Kaya, since you have such talent, you need to cultivate even more diligently. More strength means more ability to protect yourself. The divine kingdom of Pingtian won't be peaceful during this period of time, Jianshan said. Jianshan said to Kaya seriously. Then he took out a large number of divine crystals from his space ring and passed them to Kaya. Moreover, he still had 3 over-god monster cores and monster cores left when he broke through to the 11th layer of the chaotic body. He also gave one of them to Kaya. Kaya's situation was different from everyone else's. Everyone's cultivation had caught up, but due to the limits of their comprehension of the laws of the world, they were unable to break through. Kaya's comprehension of laws had already reached the level of gods, but her cultivation was still far too lacking. She was only at late reciprocity. As long as she was given enough cultivation resources, she would be able to raise her cultivation base to the heavenly god realm in one go. As a result, Jianshan had given Kaya quite a lot of divine crystals this time, allowing Kaya to become a god. There was more than enough. Kaya instinctively rejected Jianshan's selfless gifts, but after a moment of hesitation, she accepted them in the end. Afterwards, they exchanged some pleasantries before entering the main topic very soon. Shangguan Mu, who said to Jianshan sternly, Jianshan, the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion have already arrived outside the fortress. The divine king has already hurried to the front lines with all his experts. Before he left, he sent an emissary to tell you to immediately go to the front lines as reinforcements after emerging from seclusion. Jianshan immediately became rather stern when he heard that. Is the battle about to begin? Brother, I'll go with you. See you arrive beside Jianshan as her eyes shone with battle intent. Jianshan frowned slightly. The heavenly demon religion has mobilized 3 armies. Clearly, they're serious. It'll be extremely dangerous this time. I think even divine king experts will die. Even over-gods will struggle to protect themselves. So don't take part in this battle. I'll go to the front lines alone. No, brother. I have to take part in the battle. I comprehend the way of slaughter, so going through difficult battles and trials of life and death will instead benefit me. Moreover, although I'm only a god right now, I've reached the peak of god. Coupled with my innate abilities, I believe I can even put up a fight against over-gods, said Siyu with determination. Sacred Feather said, with a resolute look on his face. His fighting spirit soared, and his blood seemed to be boiling. Jianshan, all of us have walked through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Although we all know that you don't want us to take part in the battle because you're thinking about us, isn't this battle a form of training for all of us as well? Said Houston. Jianshan, ever since we came to the Saint's world, we haven't moved around at all. You have to let us move around this time, right? You can show off the strength of our Tianyuan family as well, said Blackfish. His words immediately received the support of Rui Jin and Honglian. I want to go this time as well. With my current strength, I can assist you in crucial moments. Moreover, my way of the Zither will be even more effective in large-scale battles, said Shangguan Mu as well. Her mastery of the way of the Zither was indeed extremely great. She could use her music to disturb the souls of people and throw their minds into disorder. In large-scale battles, she could even influence the outcome of the battle. The clan needs someone to watch over it. Mu'er, your existence hasn't been exposed yet, so don't go to the front lines this time. Stay in the clan and watch over it. The strength of our Tianyuan family needs to be displayed, but it needs to be hidden as well. If others learn about the strength of our Tianyuan family, it'll be bad for us instead, said Jianshan. In the end, Jianshan only took a portion of the people to the front lines. Jianshan left the regular elders like Ando Fu and Mo Ling and so on in the clan. He only took Siyu, Houston, Ruijin, Blackfish, and Honglian with him. As for Shun Jian and the elders from the world of Forsaken Saints, they also remained in the clan to watch over it. Newbies and Shi remained in seclusion. Jianshun did not disturb them. The next morning, a huge flying vehicle slowly rose into the air from the Tianyuan family. It carried many experts of the provincial city towards the front lines. Countless people in the provincial city below sent them off politely. They sent their blessings and prayed for them inside. Shangguan Mu, and the others stared at the flying vehicle in the forbidden grounds of the Tianyuan family. They did not disperse for quite some time. I hope they can all return safely. Everyone prayed inside. Although the people heading to the front lines were not weak, the battle this time was just too great. There were quite a few divine kings taking part, so even overgods might not be able to protect themselves. High up in the sky, a huge flying magical equipment was speeding forward. Layers of clouds formed a snow-white carpet that stretched as far as the eye could see. Fierce gales were howling high up in the sky, but they were blocked by the light screen emitted by the flying magical equipment. No matter how fierce the gales were, they were unable to shake the flying magical equipment in the slightest. Jianshan sat at the very front of the vehicle in white clothes. His eyes were closed like an old monk in meditation. Unknowingly, a powerful presence radiated from Jianshan. It passed through the barrier of light and directly permeated the surroundings, causing the fearless beasts in the wilderness to retreat far away. Fear filled their eyes. Behind him, Houston, Siu, Ruijin, Honglian, Blackfish, and so on sat there as well. They did not move at all like statues. Aside from them, there were over a dozen other gods on the vehicle. They were the ancestors of the powerful clans in the Dong and province. At this moment, the ancestors of the powerful clans all looked to Houston and the others who sat before them. They studied them carefully as they were secretly surprised. I heard that there's an extremely mysterious forbidden ground within the Tianyuan family. These people should have come from there. The Tianyuan family really does have hidden power. The ancestors of the powerful clans murmured to themselves. Whenever their gazes landed on Houston and Sacred Feather, they would feel a chill run down their spines. This allowed them to deeply understand that Houston and Siyu were definitely no ordinary gods. After several hours of flight, Jinshin's group finally arrived at the fortress. Before them was a pitch-black wall that seemed like a huge dragon. It was majestic and domineering. Countless complicated and profound inscriptions were engraved on the wall, flickering with light. An extremely tremendous pulse of energy radiated from the wall, shaking up the surroundings and causing ripples in space. Moreover, at the very front of the city wall, there was a dazzling and resplendent screen of light that rose from the ground and shot straight into the clouds. It formed a wall that separated the inside and outside of the city wall, causing the inside and outside of the city wall to appear as if they were two different worlds. The sun shone brightly within the wall. It was filled with a sense of righteousness. Outside the wall, black clouds loomed over the sky as demonic aura surged into the sky. The entire world had been reduced to darkness, giving off a cold, bone-chilling presence. They were only separated by a single wall, but they reflected two completely different worlds. On the flying magic treasure, everyone opened their eyes and stared down with solemn expressions. A gleam of light flickered through Jinshin's eyes. His gaze seemed to pierce through the darkness as he glanced beyond the wall. He could clearly see 3 armies gathered outside the fortress in 3 camps. "Who are you? State your names." Just when Jinshin's flying vehicle was about to approach the fortress, he was suddenly stopped by over a dozen men and women in azure robes. Every single one of them possessed extraordinary cultivation. Even the weakest of them was a god, while their leader was even an overgod. Chapter 1918. Jianshun sat on the flying vehicle and did not stand up. He studied the people who had surrounded him calmly. He had never seen any of them, including the overgod. Moreover, they all wore the same attire, which was basically the same. Clearly, they came from an organization outside the divine kingdom of Pingtian. We are from Adong, and province of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. This is the patriarch of the Tianyuan family of the Dong, and province, Sir Jianshun. Before Jianshun could say anything, a god from a powerful clan spoke first. His gaze towards Jianshun was filled with undisguised admiration. The people around Jianshun all became surprised when they heard the god's words. At that moment, all of their gazes gathered on Jianshun, who sat at the very front leisurely. "Are you the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianshun?" The light in the overgod's eyes flickered. He studied Jianshun seriously, as if he wanted to see through Jianshun completely. None of them were unfamiliar with the name of the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianshun. In reality, the most discussed topic among the overgods in the past few days was not the three armies of the heavenly demon religion, nor was it the intense battle that was about to begin. Instead, it was the overgod who had suddenly appeared in a tiny kingdom like the divine kingdom of Pingtian. This person was naturally Jianshun. Jianshun had already become renowned after his battle against the protectors of the Earth Spirit sect. He was even praised as possessing the strength to make it onto the overgod's plaque. The 3,000 names on the overgod's plaque did not just record the overgods of a single region or plane. Instead, they represented the entire Saints world. Just how many overgods are there on the 49 Great Plains and 81 great planets in the Saints world? Just how great of a glory would it be to stand above the rest and make it onto the overgod's plaque and become one of the 3,000 most powerful overgods in the entire Saints world? As a result, the name of Jianshun from the Tianyuan family naturally spread rapidly among the circle of overgods, attracting the attention of many people. Who was the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianshun? At this moment, a lazy voice sounded. A young man who appeared to be in his 20s soared into the air from below. He stood with his hands behind his back and hovered in front of the Tianyuan family's flying artifact. With a somewhat frivolous expression, he sized up Jianshun, who was sitting cross-legged there. Moreover, he was clearly at a higher altitude than the flying magic treasure, which created a scene of a young man looking down at the Tianyuan family from a high vantage point. "Greetings, Senior Brother Luo. Greetings, Protector Luo." The arrival of the young man immediately made the people around Jianshun bow politely. Protector Luo nodded slightly. He waved his hand and calmed everyone down. However, his eyes remained fixed on Jianshun the entire time. His lips curled into a smile, as if he was interested in the situation. "Are you the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianshun, who has appeared recently?" Protector Luo looked at Jianshun arrogantly. "That's right. I am the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianshun. Please make way." Jianshun clasped his fist at Protector Luo and spoke indifferently. A cold light flashed through Protector Luo's eyes. His smile remained the same, and his expression did not change at all. He said, "Recently, I've heard a lot about the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan. I've heard so much that my ears have almost grown calluses. Many people have heard that the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianshun, is powerful enough to make it onto the overgod's plaque. I am Luo Yunfei from the sword sect of the Azure, clothed from the Tai Empire. I hope I can experience the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan's great moves. I hope the patriarch will not be stingy with his guidance." Luo Yunfei retreated a certain distance away, and an extremely thin willow leaf sword appeared in his hand. With the sword in hand, Luo Yunfei's aura suddenly changed. A powerful and sharp sword intent spread out from his body. The power of the laws of the sword revolved around him, forming a thin strand of sword chi that rapidly revolved around him. Jianshun raised an eyebrow. He could not help but study Luo Yunfei properly. This was the first overgod he had seen since coming to the Saints' world aside from Ling Hogong, who had comprehended the laws of the sword. Moreover, he was a late overgod. As soon as Luo Yunfei's presence expanded, it immediately alarmed countless people below. Immediately, many overgods from various organizations flew up from below. Even a few Divine King experts were secretly observing the situation. Everyone, don't you all want to see Jinshin? This is the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan from the Dong and province of our divine kingdom of Pingtian, Jinshin. The Grand Imperial Protector of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian gathered with the Divine King in a majestic divine hall. He said to everyone with a smile. The Divine King present had already become extremely curious about the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, who was known to possess the strength to make it onto the Overgod's plaque. They became even more interested when they heard what the Grand Imperial Protector had said. They all extended the senses of their souls. Aha! He really is someone known to possess the strength to make it onto the Overgod's plaque. Although Jinshin hasn't attempted the Overgod's plaque yet and his name hasn't been recorded, just his presence alone is quite extraordinary. Praised an elder from the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds of the Heavenly Moon Empire. The three elders of the Earth Spirit sect, who sat nearby, had sunken expressions. They were very unsightly. At this moment, the surroundings of Jinshin's flying vehicle could be described as a sea of people. A large number of overgods and gods had gathered there. All of them studied Jinshin with a strange light in their eyes. Their gazes were filled with curiosity, doubt, and disapproval. So that's the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, Jinshin. He's known to be on the Overgod's plaque. What do you mean he's on the Overgod's plaque? That's just people who don't know anything about it. Across the entire Saints world, there are only 3,000 people who can make it onto the Overgod's plaque. Every single one of them is a prodigy of their generation. I refuse to believe that a backwater place like the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian can produce someone like that. We'll know once he fights Luo Yunfei of the Sword Sect of the Azure Clothed. We've all witnessed Luo Yunfei's strength. Although he doesn't possess the right to make it onto the Overgod's plaque, there really aren't a lot of people who can defeat him among Overgods. That's right. Senior Luo is the most powerful overgod of our sword sect of the Azure Clothed. Many elders praise Senior Luo. Let's wait and see. The patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan definitely won't be Senior Luo's opponent. Everyone discussed with one another. A few female disciples from the sword sect of the Azure Clothed waved their little fists as their eyes shone brightly. They cheered on their Senior Luo. Chapter 1919. However, Jinshin's words were completely different in the eyes of the people in the surroundings. Many people who doubted Jinshin's battle prowess on the Overgod's plaque became even more certain of their suspicions. Luo Yunfei of the Sword Sect of the Azure Clothed is renowned in the Tai Empire. Not only is it because he's a direct disciple of the ancestor of the Sword Sect of the Azure Clothed, but his talent is also one of the best in the southern region. He's even known as the greatest overgod in the Tai Empire. Does Jinshin not dare to spar with Luo Yunfei because he knows about Luo Yunfei's strength, which is why he doesn't accept the challenge? That must be the case. Jinshin's reputation is undeserved. He's been bragged about by people who don't know anything about the Overgod's plaque, so everyone thinks he really does possess the battle prowess to make it onto the Overgod's plaque. In reality, he's not Senior Luo's opponent at all. I'm certain that if Jinshin accepts the challenge, Senior Luo will definitely beat the crap out of him. The people who had gathered in the surroundings all discussed with one another. Many of them looked at Jinshin with deep disdain. On the other hand, Luo Yunfei, who was wearing a green robe and wielding a willow leaf sword and emitting a soaring sword chi, won the cheers of many people. Some of the beautiful girls from the major powers were even secretly throwing flirtatious glances at him. They were deeply attracted by Luo Yunfei's aura and were captivated by him. Not only was Luo Yunfei's talent extraordinary, but he was also a direct disciple of the ancestor of the Sword Sect of the Azure Clothed. His status was so great that even the princes of the Tai Empire paled in comparison. With such a great background, Luo Yunfei naturally possessed an almost fatal attraction to the female disciples of the various organizations. A sliver of arrogance appeared on Luo Yunfei's face when he heard the discussions in the surroundings. He looked down at Jianshun from above and said, "So many of us have come here from so far away, obviously, to resist the heavenly demon religion. However, the battle has yet to begin, so a spar between us won't affect the battle at all. Instead, we can use this free time to find some entertainment for everyone." Luo Yunfei didn't back down at all. Instead, he kept pressing forward, as if he wouldn't let Jianshun pass if they didn't exchange pointers. He had already made up his mind. He would defeat the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianshun, in public today and make him fall off the altar of the 3,000 Overgods plaque. He would let the world know that it was not so easy to make it onto the Overgods plaque. This was because he, Luo Yunfei, had gone to the central region several decades ago. He was ambitious enough to attempt the Overgods plaque, but he failed in the end. He was just too far away from making it onto the Overgods plaque. As a result, he naturally did not wish for a person whose strength had yet to be tested to bear the reputation of making it onto the Overgods plaque. Would that not mean that he, Luo Yunfei, was inferior to him? "It looks like you insist on a spar with me," said Jianshun. He remained seated on the flying vehicle. His eyes were calm, and his expression did not change at all. "If that's the case, I'll spar with you. However, the battle is more important. In order to not waste any time, let's limit the spar to a single move." "A single move?" Luo Yunfei frowned when he heard that. Although he was certain that it was impossible for the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianshun, to make it onto the Overgods plaque, he had defeated the two protectors of the Earth Spirit sect after all. It would indeed be difficult for him to achieve victory in a single strike. What? A single move? The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan is just too devious. He knows that he's not Senior Luo's opponent, which is why he's limiting it to a single move. Even if Senior Luo is far more powerful than him, they're both late Overgods after all. It's impossible to determine the victor in a single move, sneered a female protector from the sword sect of the Azure Clothed. Hearing this, the surrounding people all nodded to themselves. They all thought that what the female protector of the green robe sword sect said made sense. "If you can make me move a single inch within a single move, it'll be my loss. What do you think?" Jianshun continued. He slowly drifted away, leaving the flying vehicle. With Luo Yunfei's strength, there are very few people who can remain as steady as a mountain when he uses his full strength. Jianshun is definitely going to lose this battle. However, even if he's not as powerful as Luo Yunfei, he's not too far off from being able to defeat the protectors of the Earth Spirit sect. Luo Yunfei's strike will definitely make Jianshun move, but it won't necessarily injure him. As a result, Jianshun will be defeated, but he won't lose too badly, said an overgod who also came from a large sect in the crowd. Jianshun will definitely end up in an extremely horrible shape if the battle drags on, which is why he's limiting it to a single move. He wants to maintain his dignity as much as possible so that he won't lose too badly. Haha, interesting, truly interesting. They haven't even begun, yet Jianshun, who can make it onto the Overgod's plaque, is already prepared for defeat. See you, Houston, Ruijin, Honian, Blackfish, and so on all sat on the flying vehicle. They all stared at Jianshun calmly. They all felt extremely confident in Jianshun. They all understood Jianshun. They knew that since Jianshun was bold enough to make such a challenge, he must be extremely confident. All right, then we'll limit it to a single move. Patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, I hope you don't disappoint me. Luo Yunfei agreed without hesitation. Luo Yunfei agreed without hesitation. Although the restriction of one move had cut off his chance to teach Jianshun a lesson, it was enough to make Jianshun fall from his pedestal. He had accomplished his goal. With a flick of the sleeve, sword comes. Sword chi surged from Luo Yunfei. He stowed his sword away and bellowed out. Suddenly, he flung his sleeve. As he flung his sleeve, the wind in the surroundings kicked up. The entire world seemed to freeze up at that moment. At the same time, an extremely resplendent strand of sword chi appeared from Luo Yunfei's sleeve. It shot towards the traitorous official with terrifying might that made the expressions of all the overgods present change. The flick of the sleeve. Sword comes as a battle skill created by the founding ancestor of the sword sect of the Azure Clothed. It was extremely powerful. Not only was it Luo Yunfei's most powerful battle skill, but it was also one of the peak battle skills of the sword sect of the Azure Clothed. In order to defeat Jianshan cleanly, Luo Yunfei used his most powerful battle skill without any hesitation at all. Jianshan only extended a finger against the sword qi, and the powerful sword qi condensed into a sword. It shone with dazzling white light, causing everyone to close their eyes involuntarily. The powerful power of the laws of the sword interfered with the senses of their souls, rendering them useless. Boom! Many people failed to see how Jianshan had struck out. All they heard was a deafening rumble. Shattered strands of sword qi shot out in all directions like rain, forcing the overgods and the surroundings to block them carefully. When the white light dispersed, Jianshan and Luo Yunfei remained where they were. They were completely unscathed. However, Jianshan had not taken a single step back at all. No way. The patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan actually managed to block Luo Yunfei's strike. Someone cried out as if they struggled to believe what they had just seen. Many people were extremely surprised by this outcome. Jianshan has defeated 2 late overgods in the past after all, so it's not surprising for him to possess such strength. However, looking at it right now, he's only on par with Luo Yunfei. He's still quite far away from making it onto the overgod's plaque. An overgod commented, "That's enough. You should move aside now." Jianshan hovered in the air as his white robes fluttered in the wind. He said calmly. On the other side, Luo Yunfei slowly withdrew his presence. He was emotionless as he stared at Jianshan deeply. He clasped his hands. The patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan truly lives up to his name. I admire you. With that, Luo Yunfei turned around and left. A few overgods watched as Luo Yunfei left. They all felt doubtful. Why did Luo Yunfei seem like he was fleeing? At this moment, Luo Yunfei stood alone in his luxurious room within the divine hall of the sword sect of Azure. He rubbed his neck. His pale hand was now covered in blood. Chapter 1920. Luo Yunfei could not help but think back to the time when he had clashed with Jianshan. Although this move had only lasted for an instant, the danger it contained was something only Luo Yunfei himself could fully understand. He had used his greatest battle prowess, but not only had he been defeated in a single strike by the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, the sword qi from the patriarch had directly enveloped him, leaving behind an undetectable wound on his neck without leaving behind a single trace. He, Luo Yunfei, was completely helpless in the face of this. If it were not for the fact that the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan had shown mercy, his head would have been separated from his body long ago. At this moment, the door to Luo Yunfei's room opened, and a middle-aged man with a striking appearance who also wore azure robes walked in. The patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan is indeed very powerful. There really aren't a lot of overgods who can be his opponent. He does indeed possess the strength to make the 3,000 Divine Kings plaque. Yunfei, I hope you can remember your defeat this time. Even if you are the prodigy of the sword sect of Azure, do not become blindly arrogant. I hope that in the future, you will possess strength like the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan and be able to engrave your name on the 3,000 Divine Kings plaque, the middle-aged man said sincerely to Luo Yunfei. I will remember Elder Cheng's words. Luo Yunfei bowed towards the middle-aged man. He was filled with respect. Although Luo Yunfei's master was the ancestor of the sword sect of Azure, many elders of the sword sect of Azure had actually taught him before. They had truly used up all their resources to nurture him. Outside, Jianshan returned to the flying vehicle. He remained seated at the very front as he left with the people from the Dong and province under the gazes of many people. They directly made their way to the military camp. This time, no one stood up to block their way. Although none of them could see the danger hidden in Jinshan's attack, so many of them still did not believe that Jianshan was Luo Yunfei's opponent. He had received Luo Yunfei's attack perfectly after all, which indirectly demonstrated his strength. Only a handful of overgods sensed that something was amiss from Luo Yunfei's miserable flight. However, they clearly did not think that Luo Yunfei had been defeated. When Jianshan approached the military camp with the people from the Dong and province, several overgods from the divine kingdom of Pingtian flew up from below. They all greeted Jianshan with smiles. Jianshan stowed his flying vehicle away. He traveled with the overgods from the Dong and province and the overgods from the divine kingdom. He would look around him from time to time. The military camp within the fortress was extremely large. It stuck close to the walls and stretched for several dozen kilometers. It was impossible to see the end of it with a single glance. Not only were the armies of the divine kingdom of Pingtian gathered here, but the armies of the divine kingdom of Qingyang, the divine kingdom of Nine Stars, the divine kingdom of Scarlet Clouds, the divine kingdom of Kaiyuan, the divine kingdom of Baliega, the divine kingdom of Datian, and the divine kingdom of Clear Cloud had all gathered here. In the end, over 100 million soldiers had gathered in the fortress. It was impossible for the armies of the divine kingdoms to be gathered in a single place under normal circumstances. But in order to fend off the attacks of the heavenly demon religion, they had all cast aside all thoughts of territory and personal interests. In the end, Jianshan's group was taken into a divine hall. From Xiando and the others' explanations, Jianshan understood that there were quite a few divine halls like this in the military camp. The relationships between the various organizations that had come this time were complicated. Many of them were entangled with grievances, so it was naturally impossible for them all to gather together. Every single organization possessed their own divine hall. The divine hall that Jianshan resided in right now belonged to the divine kingdom of Pingtian. All the people who possessed some status in the divine kingdom of Pingtian gathered there. Yang Kai and a few elders of the Yang family happened to be there as well. Jianshan had already become an influential figure. His arrival immediately made the overgods in the divine hall stand up to welcome him. Only the people of the Yang family remained unmoved. Siyu, Houston, Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish, who had come with Jianshan, naturally attracted the attention of a few people as well. They basically understood the background of the Tianyuan family. The cultivation levels of the elders in the Tianyuan family were no secret to the people present. Now that they suddenly saw 5 unfamiliar faces, they naturally became curious. In particular, Siyu and Houston gave off a vague presence that actually surprised many of the overgods present. At this moment, the Grand Imperial Protector of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian walked in from outside. Everyone bowed and greeted him. The Grand Imperial Protector nodded with a smile. He looked at Jianshan and said, "Jianshan, His Majesty invites you to the main hall. Please come with me." Afterwards, Jianshan left with the Grand Imperial Protector. They made their way to the very center of the military camp, passing by majestic divine halls one after another. In the end, the Grand Imperial Protector led them to the main hall at the very center. The so-called main hall was equivalent to a commander's tent. It was where the commanders and the upper echelon of the army gathered. The divine king sat on the throne in a relaxed manner within the main hall. His face was peaceful. To the 2 sides below him sat over 20 men and women of various ages. Every single one of their presences was as vast as the ocean. They were extremely powerful. Jianshan's arrival immediately attracted the attention of everyone present. At that moment, all the people seated there looked at Jianshan. Immediately, Jianshan felt like he was sitting on a bed of needles. Every single one of the gazes that gathered on him was extremely powerful. When they gathered together, it gave him quite a lot of pressure. There are actually so many divine King Wangs. Jianshan was secretly surprised when he saw the people seated on the 2 sides of the hall. Over 20 divine King Wangs gathered together was a shocking sight. Jianshan's heart churned when he saw this. He struggled to remain calm. However, when he saw the divine king still seated on the throne, he became stunned. He felt rather confused. The divine king was indeed a divine king, but every single one of the people present was a divine king. Moreover, they all came from peak sects, clans, or even imperial families. In terms of status, they were not something a divine king of a divine kingdom could compare to. Without any exaggeration, any single one of the divine kings present possessed a status much greater than the divine king of a divine kingdom. Even the divine king would have to treat them politely. Chapter 1921. Looks like the divine king isn't simple either. He's bold enough to sit on the throne before the divine kings of the various empires. Just this alone shows that the divine king's status surpasses everyone present, Jinshin thought. However, he did not show it on his face. He clasped his fist and bowed towards the divine king and the divine kings in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Jinshin, there's no need to be so courteous. I've invited you here mainly because everyone here wants to see you personally. After all, a supreme overgod on the overgod's plaque is extremely rare in the southern region of the Cloud Plain. The divine king smiled. He spoke calmly, giving people the impression of a spring breeze. Jinshin, we all saw your battle with Yunfei clearly. Your comprehension of the laws of the sword is on the same level as Yunfei's, so in terms of the laws of the sword, there's not much of a difference between you and Yunfei. What truly determines victory is the power you possess. As soon as the divine king finished speaking, an azure-robed old man immediately spoke from the god kings to the two sides. The old man was an elder of the sword sect of Azure. He had once guided Luo Yunfei, so he understood Luo Yunfei's strength extremely well. The old man paused before continuing. This power has fused with the power of laws of the sword, so every single one of your attacks possesses the terrifying might of a peak overgod. It's far more powerful than the origin energy we cultivate, which is why you defeated Yunfei in a single strike. The people in the surroundings all nodded in agreement with the old man's analysis. They were all divine king experts, so they had already witnessed the battle between Jinshin and Luo Yunfei with the senses of their souls. Jinshin shivered inside when he heard that. None of these divine king experts were easy to deal with. His clash with Luo Yunfei had only happened in a split second, yet the divine king had still managed to see it all. Jinshin's legacy must be extremely great for him to possess such great power. It looks like Brother Jinshin has a great master as well, said the elder of the Earth Spirit sect. He seemed like he did not care at all, but he had already used the senses of his soul to surround Jinshin secretly, under the surveillance of his soul. Even if he did not look at Jinshin's expression, he would still be able to sense even the slightest of Jinshin's actions. A gleam of light flashed through the eyes of many of the divine king experts present when they heard Elder Mu's words. They stared at Jinshin casually. What does Brother Jinshin's legacy have to do with your Earth Spirit sect? Don't tell me your Earth Spirit sect has taken a fancy to Brother Jinshin's cultivation method? What kind of improper thoughts are you harboring? Sneered an elder from the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds. The Taoist sect of Calm Clouds and the Earth Spirit sect were both peak sects of the Heavenly Moon Empire, but they had always been at odds with each other. They would naturally fight wherever they went, oppressing each other without holding back at all. Elder Mu snorted coldly. My Earth Spirit sect is a renowned sect in the southern region, after all. Why would we do something like that? Moreover, it's not like my Earth Spirit sect lacks cultivation methods. Afterwards, Jinshin naturally received many offers from large sects and organizations. Many of them wanted a rope in a supreme overgod like Jinshin. This was because once someone like that reached divine king level, they would become a supreme divine king in the end and reign supreme. Jinshin naturally did not choose to join any of these organizations. He turned them down one by one. However, Jinshin felt a sense of danger from what he had gone through today. Although these divine kings did not recognize the primal chaos energy, they could tell that his cultivation technique was extraordinary through the primal chaos energy. If these people really had any ideas about his cultivation technique, they would be able to tell that his cultivation technique was extraordinary. Jinshin's heart tightened when he thought of that. He secretly became cautious. Fortunately, he had broken through with the chaotic body. Although he had not truly fought against divine king experts, He could put up some resistance at the very least. Boom! At this moment, a deafening rumble rang out from outside. The entire ground shook violently, and even the main hall where the Divine King experts resided shook violently. The three armies of the heavenly demon religion have moved. Everyone, follow me out to fend off the enemies, the Divine King said sternly. With that, he stood up from his throne and strode outside. Behind him, the 20-odd Divine King experts gathered there all left. Jianshan walked at the very back. However, as soon as Jianshan moved, an extremely obscure, cold, killing intent suddenly appeared. It enveloped his entire body and immediately made Jianshan feel bone-chilling coldness. Jianshan frowned. A gleam of light flickered through his eyes. Just when he wanted to sense where the killing intent came from, it suddenly vanished. Jianshan's face sank. He knew that he had become the target of a few Divine King experts. Although he did not know who they were, he was certain that they were among them. Is it the Earth Spirit sect? Jianshan thought. However, although he had fallen out with the Earth Spirit sect in the past, he was not certain. The majestic walls of the fortress on the border of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian were already filled with people. Not only were the armies of several divine kingdoms gathered there, but there were also disciples from various large organizations and sections. Every single one of them gave off powerful presences. When the presences gathered together, they expanded in an overwhelming manner, causing the clouds to churn in the sky. Jianshan found Siyu, Houston, and Ruijin on the walls. After warning them to be careful, he stood with his hands behind his back. He stared into the distance with a steady presence. Outside the walls, the three armies of the heavenly demon religion had already dispersed in a formation. Black clouds surged in the sky as demonic aura surged. A terrifying pressure condensed and brewed. Below the black clouds, three figures hovered several hundred meters above the ground. Their presences surged like the ocean as they gave off the might of the Divine King. Under the control of the three of them, the pressure crushed forward with overwhelming force, causing the air to freeze and origin energy to disperse. It even caused the barrier of light in front of the fortress to distort. The pressure from the three of them was enough to shake the barrier of light. He was able to shake this extremely strong defensive energy screen. Jianshan stared at the three figures surrounded by demonic aura as he stood on the walls. He could vaguely tell that there were two men and one woman among them. In particular, he frowned when he sensed their dominating presences. They must be the commanders of the three armies of the heavenly demon religion. They really are powerful. Among the 20-odd Divine King that have come as reinforcements this time, there's probably no one who's the opponent of the three commanders in a one-on-one fight. As a matter of fact, I feel like any one of them is more powerful than the Divine King from the Een Mountains of Seven's Despair. Jianshan was secretly surprised. He was amazed by the strength of the three commanders of the heavenly demon religion. At this moment, the Divine King took a step forward. With that, the shaking barrier of light immediately stabilized. No matter how powerful the presences of the three commanders of the heavenly demon religion were, they were unable to shake the barrier of light at all. Furthermore, there was a formless aura that permeated the air. Not only were the presences of the three commanders of the heavenly demon religion unable to approach the barrier of light at all, but they were even pushed back instead. The Divine King's dragon robes were bright and dazzling. He only stood there casually, but he gave off a presence that could stop armies. He gave off a feeling of invincibility. Heavenly demon religion, it's impossible for you to breach my divine kingdom this time. I'd advise you to retreat. Don't make unnecessary sacrifices, the Divine King said indifferently as he gave off a sense of dominance. Moreover, his voice boomed like thunder. It boomed through the three armies of the Empyrean demon cult, directly dispersing the black, demonic clouds in the sky. The formation formed by the 300,000 soldiers of the three armies shook, almost collapsing. The might of those words was truly terrifying. If they were just a little more powerful, no one would doubt that the 300,000 soldiers of the three armies would be heavily injured or even killed by a single sentence from the Divine King. Jianshan stared at the Divine King deeply as he stood on the walls. He had seen the Divine King more than once in the past, but the Divine King always seemed unfathomable. He was unable to see through him at all. Only when the Divine King revealed his might did he finally see the tip of the iceberg. Is the Divine King an expert below the Divine King? After all, he possessed the strength of a Divine King when he founded the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. The Divine Kingdom of Pingtian has already existed for close to 1,000,000 years, Jianshan thought inside. At this moment, an extremely terrifying presence suddenly erupted from behind the Empyrean demon cult like a volcano. Wherever the presence passed by, space would tremble, and even origin energy would tremble. The ground below would crack and sink. All the people on the walls of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian struggled to breathe as if a mountain was pressing down on their chests. Their hearts were about to shatter. Not only did all the overgods, including Jianshan, experience this, but even the Divine King experts paled slightly when they sensed the presence. Their bodies sank. The presence was so powerful that even the Divine King experts struggled to endure it. In the end, the terrifying presence that leaked out from the back of the Empyrean demon cult collided with the barrier of energy outside the walls in an unstoppable manner. Looking at the aggressive momentum, it seemed that they were going to crush the light barrier and the fortress behind it into smithereens. The primordial realm. Jianshan became extremely stern as he stood on the walls. He could tell that such a terrifying presence came from a primordial realm expert in a single instance. Chapter 1922. Jianshan's heart sank. Even though he had over 20 Divine King experts from the various empires on his side, no primordial realm experts had come according to his knowledge. However, a primordial realm expert had appeared on the heavenly demon religion side now. How were they supposed to stop such a supreme expert? Even if all 20 or so Divine King experts worked together, they would not be able to stop a single primordial realm expert. The primordial realm was a higher realm. The difference between them and the Divine King was so great that it was like a chasm that could not be crossed. It was rumored that only the Divine King, who ranked extremely high on the Divine King's side, could take on a primordial realm expert in an open battle, but that was only at the level of early primordial realm. Jianshan subconsciously looked at the Divine King. The Divine King was unfathomable in his eyes the entire time. He had only revealed the tip of his strength earlier, yet he had almost caused the formation of the army of 300,000 from the heavenly demon religion to collapse. Without a doubt, he was the strongest expert on their side. Jianshan did not know whether the Divine King could stop the pressure from the primordial realm expert from the heavenly demon religion. However, as soon as Jianshan thought of that, the Divine King's robes ruffled despite the lack of wind. An extremely terrifying presence erupted from the Divine King's imposing body like a volcano. It surged out with enough power to shake the world, directly passing through the screen of light outside the walls and colliding with the primordial realm expert's presence from the heavenly demon religion. Jianshan's eyes narrowed when he saw this. He discovered that the Divine King's presence was so powerful that it had completely blocked the presence of the primordial realm expert from the heavenly demon religion. The Divine King's presence was no weaker than the primordial realm expert from the heavenly demon religion. The presence of the primordial realm. The Divine King is actually a primordial realm expert. Jianshan was extremely shocked. He looked at the Divine King in shock. It was not just him. All the overgods in the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian, including the overgods from the various empires and sects, widened their eyes as well. They stared at the Divine King in disbelief. Waves of shock surged in everyone's hearts. Just like Jianshan, they all believed that the Divine King was only a Divine King. Only now did they suddenly discover that the Divine King had actually reached the primordial realm. The primordial realm was an existence that stood on the same level as the holy emperor of the various ancient empires and the ancestors of the various peak sections. Just when all the overgods were shocked by the Divine King's strength, the Divine King experts from the various organizations remained calm. They were not surprised at all. No wonder the Divine king still sits on the throne like he's high above all the divine king elders from the empires. I was confused at the beginning, but I finally understand now. The divine king has actually broken through to the primordial realm. The divine king should have only broken through recently. Otherwise, the news of him reaching the primordial realm would have spread long ago, Jianshun said with a sigh. Some of the over-gods from the major sects were secretly muttering to themselves. Outside the walls, the presence of the primordial realm expert from the Empyrean demon cult was blocked by the divine king. The two presences clashed intensely, and a terrifying pressure permeated the surroundings. Not only did the sky tremble, but the space there rippled like water as visible rings of ripples appeared. In the end, the two presences were evenly matched. Neither of them gained the upper hand. Ping Tian, let's leave these trivial matters to the people below. Let's play a game of chess and observe the battle. A dignified voice suddenly rang out from behind the heavenly demon religion. Demonic aura surged as a figure shrouded in black mist flew over on a black cloud. His presence was extremely terrifying, causing the expressions of all the divine king experts to change. The divine king stood on the walls and stared at the person in the black mist calmly. He said, "Vice Leader Huayan, I never thought you'd actually come personally. Ha ha ha! Ping Tian, you've already broken through to the primordial realm. You're no longer the divine king. Since you've come, it's impossible for me not to come." The person in the black mist laughed aloud. With that, the black mist around him began to disperse, revealing a handsome middle-aged man in black robes in the end. However, the middle-aged man gave off a sense of evilness, which made him seem sinister. With a wave of Huayan's hand, a chessboard appeared in the air. He directly sat down before the chessboard and made an inviting gesture towards the divine king. The divine king remained calm. He took a step and appeared before Huayan like he had teleported. He sat down before the chessboard. As primordial realm experts, they would not fight so easily, as the destruction would be just too great. If the two of them fought recklessly here, just the terrifying shockwaves of energy would probably be enough to cause heavy casualties. The tough fortress would be flattened. As a result, both Vice Leader Huayan and the Divine King did not wish for a battle to break out. That would only make their losses even heavier. It would not be worth it. Is this the Vice Leader of the Heavenly Demon Religion, Huayan? Jianxin stared at Huayan. It was this person who had killed the divine King Duanmu in the past. It was also because of this person that the overgods who had entered the divine King Duanmu's dwelling dared not accept the divine king's legacy. It was also because of this person that Ling Hogong had vanished from the divine kingdom of Pingtian, hiding in a place that no one knew about. The primordial realm experts on both sides were kept busy by their opponents. Even though they possessed extraordinary abilities, they were unable to interfere with the battle below. Attack! On the Empyrean demon cult side, the 300,000 soldiers of the three armies began to move at the same time under the orders of the three commanders. The battle had officially begun. Immediately, countless formations in the three armies were activated. They flickered under the dark clouds that blocked out the sunlight, giving off powerful pulses of energy. Each formation was formed by 10,000 people, and in the middle of each formation, there was a small formation diagram floating. Through the formation diagram's amplitude, not only could the power of the 10,000 people be perfectly combined, but this power would also become stronger after being amplified by the formation diagram. Boom! A loud sound rang out. The heavens fell and the earth split apart. Mountains collapsed and the entire earth trembled. The three armies of 300,000 stood in 30 formations. They radiated with surging pulses of energy as they attacked the barrier of light before the walls with their full strength. Even though the barrier of light was extremely tough, where even Divine King experts would need to expend quite a lot of effort to get through it, it shook violently after withstanding such a ferocious attack. It wavered and rapidly dimmed. The army of over 100 million moved at the same time on the divine kingdom of Pingtian's side. Under the orders of the Grand Imperial Protector, the army was divided into several groups. A portion of them arrived before the formation and poured their origin energy into the center of the formation to support the defenses. Another portion of people stood on the walls. All of them pressed their hands against the walls as they poured their origin energy into the walls. Chapter 1923. Boom, boom, boom. Immediately, deafening booms constantly rang out. The pillars of light from the formations on the fortress were dazzling and resplendent, illuminating the sky and turning it snow white. Every single pillar of light possessed extremely powerful pulses of energy. However, when the pillars of light struck the soldiers of the three armies of the heavenly demon religion, they were blocked by a layer of black, demonic aura from the formations. The defensive power of this layer of black demon chi was very strong. More than a dozen energy light beams shot out from the fortress simultaneously bombarded it, but they were unable to penetrate this layer of demon chi. The soldiers of the three armies of the heavenly demon religion used the layer of demonic aura to block the attacks from the fortress. At the same time, they all powered up the formations and launched powerful attacks at the barrier of light that blocked their path. The barrier of light connected the sky to the ground. As long as the barrier remained intact, even those who could fly would not be able to pass through it. The energy of the barrier of light was depleted extremely quickly as it faced the storm-like attacks from the three armies of the heavenly demon religion. The soldiers who provided the barrier with energy paled very soon as their origin energy was completely depleted. However, just when they were about to give out, a second batch of soldiers immediately came up to replace them. They did their best to maintain the barrier of light. On the stronghold, the soldiers who provided energy for the attack formations engraved on the city walls were also replaced by batches. At the same time, a large number of divine crystals were poured into the cores of the formations. Using both sources of energy, the power of the formations was unleashed to the limit. Jianshun stood with the people from the Dong and province on the walls. He watched the situation below and frowned heavily. The 9 armies of the heavenly demon religion really are powerful. They really are terrifying armies that can wipe out an army of millions with just 100,000. The formations created by the 10,000 people have already reached the peak of Overgod. Even the prodigy of the sword sect of the Azure Cloth, Luo Yunfei, who fought against me, would probably only be able to flee when faced with the formations. Jianshan murmured to himself as he stared at the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion closely. Not only did the people of the 3 armies reach the level of peak overgods after forming the formations, but they were not weak either. They were all deities at the very least. Although the divine kingdom of Pingtian had gathered an army of over 100 million, it was only quantity that mattered. There was no quality to it. Compared to the army of 300,000 from the heavenly demon religion, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. The 9 armies of the heavenly demon religion were all composed of godhood cultivators, while the army of over 100 million from the divine kingdom of Pingtian was mainly composed of origin realm cultivators. The difference in strength between the 2 armies was obvious. Only the royal divine army can fend off such a powerful army in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Jinshin sighed inside. The royal divine army of the divine kingdom of Pingtian was very powerful and was also composed of godhood cultivators, but there were just too few of them on the battlefield. The soldiers of the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion had to attack the barriers of light while enduring the beams of energy from the formations on the walls. Very soon, some of them were overwhelmed. A few soldiers from the heavenly demon religion had already died, having their bodies pierced by the beams of energy. Even their souls were unable to escape from the devastating shock waves of energy, directly dispersing. The divine kingdom of Pingtian had paid quite a heavy price as well. Even without mentioning the tremendous amount of divine crystals, they had to switch out batches and batches of soldiers to provide energy for the formations. Look at you men. Is it worth it for you to sacrifice your origin energy so desperately? Just how much has the divine kingdom of Pingtian given you? Is it worth it for you to risk your lives? In my opinion, it's better for you to flee with your loved ones if you have the strength to do so, away from the flames of war, so that you can spend the rest of your lives with your loved ones. At this moment, a giggle rang out in the air. It was filled with endless charm, directly drowning out the rumbles on the battlefield. It reverberated into the fortress. Many of the overgods on the walls became dazed for a moment when they heard the voice. Confusion filled their eyes. However, this confusion only lasted for a few seconds before they recovered. Immediately, all of them became covered in cold sweat as they felt lingering fear. Even Jinshen felt his soul thump. He had almost lost his composure. In the next moment, his eyes immediately shone brightly. He guarded his mind firmly as he stared straight ahead. He was not affected by the voice at all. Yashi Lian, commander of the 7th Army. She's a late divine king. She's a 9-tailed fox. She's lustful and skilled in charm. Jianshan thought back to the introduction the divine king had given to the 3 commanders of the heavenly demon religion. Clearly, the person who had charmed him was the commander of the 7th Army, Yashi Lian. Jianshan was filled with caution. Clearly, the charm in Yashi Lian's voice was not targeted at him. But even with that being the case, he had almost lost his composure. If it was targeted at him, he did not even know if he could remain conscious. However, the charm in Yashi Lian's voice did not affect the overgods very much because it was not targeted at them on purpose. However, the hundreds of millions of soldiers gathered in the fortress were not that powerful. The moment Yashi Lian's voice rang out, all of their minds fell under her control. A sliver of confusion appeared in their eyes. Yashi Lian's voice echoed through their heads. It shattered their mental defenses in a single instance, causing them to lose themselves. Yeah, the divine kingdom of Pingtian only gives me a few divine crystals every year. Is it really worth it for me to give up my life for... I have a wife too. Why don't I take my wife to a faraway place, far away from the flames of war? Why do I have to take part in this war and throw away my life for nothing? At that moment, many people's wills were shaken. The soldiers who provided energy to the screen of light all stopped what they were doing. Their wills sank, and their fighting spirit vanished. As a result, the screen of light outside the city walls rapidly dimmed. It had to be mentioned that Yashi Lian's charm was extremely powerful. Just a single sentence had affected the minds of the 100 million soldiers. The expressions of the divine king experts on the walls all changed when they sensed the weakening of the army. Immediately, a divine king bellowed out. This roar was like the rumbling of heavenly thunder, exploding in the minds of the 100 million soldiers. Immediately, everyone regained their clarity of mind. However, the barrier on the walls was no longer supported by enough energy due to the delay. Under the full-powered attacks of the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion, the barrier was destroyed with a great boom. Powerful ripples of energy wreaked havoc, blowing away the soldiers who provided the barrier with energy. Everyone was crushed to pieces. Their bodies were still flying through the air, and before they landed on the ground, they had already lost their lives. Kill. Without the obstruction of the barrier, the fortress of the divine kingdom of Pingtian was directly exposed to the heavenly demon religion. The 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion surged with vigor as they roared out. They directly charged up the walls. All overgods, move out. Kill the enemy with your full strength. The Grand Imperial Protector called out. He was extremely stern. Protect yourselves. Don't stray too far from the walls. Jianshan ordered the people behind him. Then he drew the startling rainbow sword and directly charged at the heavenly demon religion with surging sword chi. The dazzling light from the sword flickered in the surroundings, shattering the demonic aura in the surroundings. It directly slashed toward the formation of 10,000 people from the heavenly demon religion. Chapter 1924. When Jianshan struck out, the other overgod did not stand by idly either. They all rose into the air and charged towards the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion aggressively. With that, several hundred overgods flew out from the divine kingdom of Pingtian side. The divine kingdom of Pingtian only took up around a dozen people, while the reinforcements from the surrounding divine kingdoms took up several dozen people. The rest all came from large empires and sections. When the overgods from the divine kingdom of Pingtian moved out, many overgods from the heavenly demon religion flew out as well. They engaged in an intense battle with the overgods from the divine kingdom of Pingtian in the air, preventing the overgods from attacking the formation. Immediately, booms constantly rang out in the sky. Terrifying energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings, blotting out the sky and causing the sun, moon, and stars to dim in comparison. The fortress on the border of the divine kingdom of Pingtian constantly shook as well. However, the fortress was extraordinarily tough. Inscriptions flickered on it, allowing it to endure the terrifying storm of energy stubbornly. The overgods from both sides engaged in an intense battle in the air. None of them had a fixed opponent. They would fight wherever they went. In the previous moment, your opponent might be the same person, but in the next second, it might be someone else. The battle between the overgods was extremely intense. In just a short while, blood rained down from the sky as severed limbs flew through the air. Many people were already heavily injured, or they had even directly died. Corpses of overgods fell from the sky. Jianshun wielded the startling rainbow sword as he entered the chaotic battle between the overgods. Light filled the sky as sword chi rampaged about. He did not show any mercy at all. However, in order to avoid attracting the attention of the upper echelon of the heavenly demon religion, he purposefully hid his strength. He did not use his full strength, only displaying strength equivalent to Luo Yunfei's. However, even with that being the case, he still stood at the very peak among the overgods. Very few late overgods from the heavenly demon religion were his opponents. Jianshun purposefully avoided late overgods and specially targeted early and mid overgods. He killed them with lightning speed. The third, the fourth, the fifth. Very soon, the number of early and mid overgods that had died to Jianshun's hands reached 7. Jianshun would collect their space rings whenever he killed one of them. The senses of his soul enveloped the entire battlefield, paying close attention to Siyu, Houston, and Ruijin. However, the battle raged on the battlefield. Jianshun's senses of his soul was quite affected as well. The power of his soul was being depleted, but he did not care. Overgods from the heavenly demon religion. 5 early and mid overgods had died to his hands, but in the end he faced with a late overgod from the heavenly demon religion, and engaged. And overgods. 5 early and mid overgods had already died to his overgods. In the end, there were 5 kill. Aside from Luo Yunfei, there were other prodigies from the various empires as well. Every single one of them was very powerful, and they did not pale in comparison to Luo Yunfei. The heavenly demon religion did not have any fewer powerful overgods than the divine kingdom of Pingtian. These overgods were the same as Jianshun and the others, specifically targeting the weaker people. Very soon, the various empires suffered heavy losses. Many early and mid overgods from the various empires and sects had died at their hands. The senses of Jianshun's soul clearly captured the 2 early overgods from the Earth Spirit sect that he had beheaded with a single strike. Their heads were smashed to pieces by a black-clothed young man from the Empyrean demon cult who radiated with a demonic aura. Their souls dispersed. Nearby, Protector Gong and Protector Wu both became furious when they saw how their junior brothers had been killed. They roared out furiously and abandoned their opponents, charging towards the young man who had killed their junior brothers at the same time. Although the young man from the heavenly demon religion was at the same level of cultivation as Protector Gong and Protector Wu, he was extremely powerful. Demonic aura surged around him, and the boundless, black mist changed according to his will. It turned into a huge hand that he struck out with. In just a single strike, he knocked Protector Gong and Protector Wu away. Killing the 2 of you will take some time. I'll come and collect your souls later. The young man stared at Protector Gong and Protector Wu coldly. He did not waste any more time with them, continuing to look for early and mid overgods to kill. He remembered the orders from the 3 commanders. Regardless of the outcome of the battle, he had to kill as many experts as he could. At this moment, the closest mid-over-god to the young man was the ancestor of the Yubing clan from the frigid snow province of the divine kingdom of Pingtian, Bing Lu. Just when Bing Lu repelled a mid-over-god from the heavenly demon religion with his dragon-headed staff, he suddenly felt an extremely great sense of danger, causing all his hairs to stand on end. The young man from the heavenly demon religion appeared before Bing Lu silently. He extended his hand emotionlessly and directly reached towards the top of Bing Lu's head. A terrifying pressure radiated from his hand. A gleam of light flashed through Bing Lu's eyes. Even though he knew he was not the young man's opponent, he showed no fear. He struck out with his dragon-headed staff as hard as he could with the laws of ice, causing the space there to freeze. Crack! The young man's strength was extremely terrifying. When his hand fell, it snapped Bing Lu's staff in half. Afterwards, his hand did not slow down at all, continuing towards Bing Lu's head. At that critical moment, Bing Lu's body swayed slightly. He moved back 3 inches in an instant, dodging the fatal strike by a hair's breadth. In the end, the young man's hand basically brushed past Bing Lu's face, leaving behind 5 bloody marks. The young man produced a gentle interjection of surprise after his strike missed. He glanced at Bing Lu in surprise, but he did not treat it too seriously. He took a step forward and extended his hand a second time. He still reached towards Bing Lu's head, as if he wanted to rip Bing Lu's head to pieces. From the beginning to the end, the young man remained extremely composed. He possessed great confidence. Bing Lu became extremely stern. He could sense the young man's strength. He was not someone he could stop. Just when he wanted to dodge as hard as he could, a figure suddenly flashed before him. The commander of the Royal Divine Army, Xiando, appeared before him. He wore armor and wielded a sword. He possessed extraordinary might. With a thrum, Xiando swung his sword as hard as he could towards the young man's hand. Faced with Xiando's attack, the young man sneered in disdain. Demonic chi surged in his hand, and the move he originally used to grab Bing Lu's head changed. He slapped the back of the sword with lightning-like speed. Bang! When the hand and the sword came in contact, it was like 2 mountains had collided, erupting with a heavy sound. Energy wreaked havoc, and Xiando's sword was directly knocked away. The powerful force caused the web between Xiando's thumb and forefinger to crack. Blood dyed the hilt of his sword red. So powerful! Xiando was extremely shocked. They were both late over gods, but the difference between him and the black-robed young man was just too great. The power of laws condensed on his sword was dispersed by a single palm strike from the young man. The young man remained indifferent. He continued to attack Xiando. Even though he did not possess a weapon, his battle prowess was still extremely shocking. In just 3 moves, he heavily injured Xiando, causing blood to spurt from his mouth. Chapter 1925. Apart from Jianshun, who had killed his way into the depths alone, none of the other overgods of the divine kingdom of Pingtian were powerful enough. They all gathered together in a small region. Seeing the danger, a few more overgods immediately hurried over to provide support. However, basically all of them were early overgods. There were not many who had reached mid-overgod, so they were not the terrifying young man's opponent. In just a few clashes, all the overgods who had come to provide support were heavily injured. If it were not for the fact that they looked after one another, they probably would have died to the young man's hands already. Seeing how valiant the young man was, the overgod from the various empires and sects were no longer bold enough to charge up and fight him. They all avoided him. No one cared about the fates of the overgods of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Moreover, many people could barely even take care of themselves in such a brutal, chaotic battle. So why would they have the energy to care about others? Yang Kai did not choose to stand out at this moment either. He moved far away and fought against a late overgod who was around his level of strength. The young man struck out once again. Every single strike possessed extremely terrifying might. His hand was covered in demonic aura as he reached towards Xiando's head with cold, killing intent. Xiando's face changed drastically. He was already heavily injured, so he was powerless to block the young man's fatal strike. At this moment, a streak of light shot over from the distance. It moved extremely quickly, like a bolt of lightning, crossing 1,000 kilometers in a single instance. It directly shot toward the young man with surging sword chi. Before the sword had even arrived, the cold sword chi had already locked onto the black-clothed young man, causing him to frown. His hand, which was about to grab Xiando's head, also paused, after which he swung it at the sword chi with even greater force without any hesitation. Boom! The sword aura made contact with the palm, causing the body of the black-clothed young man to tremble violently. The monstrous demonic aura that permeated his palm also surged violently before becoming dim. Faintly, one could see that a bloody wound had appeared on his palm. It was a ghastly sight, and traces of fresh blood flowed out from it. The eyes of the black-clothed young man hardened. His indifferent expression finally became a little more solemn. He turned his head and looked in the direction where the sword aura came from. Jianshan protected himself with light as he charged over aggressively with the startling rainbow sword. The surging sword intent he gave off was enough to deter many of the overgods from the heavenly demon religion. All of you, return to the fortress and heal your wounds. Leave this person to me, Jianshan said to Xiando and the others. He did not exchange too many pleasantries. He swung the startling rainbow sword, shooting out strands of sharp and powerful sword chi as he clashed with the young man. A pair of gauntlets appeared on the black-clothed youth's hands. His entire hand was covered by the gauntlets. Monstrous demonic chi surged, accompanied by the power of law, as he engaged in an intense battle with Jianshan. The ripples of energy that erupted from their battle were extremely intense. They blanketed the entire battlefield, becoming the center of attention. It also attracted the attention of the Divine King experts from both sides. It had to be mentioned that the black-clothed youth's strength was extremely shocking. He was far more powerful than prodigies like Luo Yunfei, which shocked even Jianshan. Originally, Jianshan had only displayed strength equivalent to Luo Yunfei's, but the appearance of the black-clothed youth forced Jianshan to reveal even more of his strength. Only then could he match the black-clothed youth. The demonic chi condensed on the black-clothed youth's gauntlets was extremely dense and pure. Coupled with the power of laws, the sword chi on the startling rainbow sword would disperse slightly every time it came in contact with Jianshan's startling rainbow sword. In the end, he would only be able to use 80% of his power. Even the laws of the sword were no exception. They would weaken when they collided with the black-clothed youth's laws. The laws of Devour. Jianshan's heart skipped a beat. He immediately recognized the laws that the black-clothed youth had grasped. The black-clothed youth was emotionless and extremely cold. He said, "You should be Jianshan. It's rumored that you have the right to make it onto the Overgod's plaque. You really do have some ability. However, if you want to truly become a supreme figure on the Divine King's plaque, you need to defeat me first." As soon as he finished speaking, the might of the world suddenly appeared. A huge black hole silently appeared behind the black-clothed young man. It released a terrifying suction force, causing the surrounding space to distort. With the appearance of the black hole, the light in the surroundings immediately dimmed. Even the chaotic streams of energy in the surroundings became slightly thinner. The origin energy in a range of several dozen kilometers had completely vanished at that moment. Not only could the black hole devour light, but could also devour all energy. If you can block my attack, I'll admit that you have the strength to make it onto the Overgod's plaque. If you can't, the person who will defeat you will be Sheng Luo, the black-clothed youth said. As he extended a finger, the black hole behind him immediately engulfed Jianshan. Terrifying, devouring power permeated the surroundings, beginning to devour the laws of the sword that had gathered around Jianshan. Even Jianshan's body was locked onto by the terrifying suction, pulling him towards the black hole. It restricted his movements as if he had fallen into mud. "Arg, I want to kill you and avenge my two junior brothers." Behind Jianshan, the woman who had been pinned to the city walls by Jianshan with a fan flew over with lightning speed. She stared at the black-clothed youth in hatred as killing intent surged. The woman was only a mid-overgod. Someone as powerful as Sheng Luo could not even be bothered to glance at her. All of his attention was focused on Jianchen. Jianchen remained calm. He also did not pay any attention to the woman with the fan. The difference in strength was just too great. If she had approached a certain distance, just the black hole from Sheng Luo would have been enough to swallow her easily, let alone deal with him. However, Jianchen did not have a good impression of the Earth Spirit sect. Naturally, he could not be bothered to stop the woman who had come to die. Sheng Luo, looks like you've already made it onto the Overgod's plaque. May I ask what your ranking is? Jianchen said calmly. He was not flustered at all, remaining composed. He formed a seal with his hand, and a golden strand of sword chi condensed, shooting towards the black hole as a streak of light. At the same time, the woman with the fan charged over as well. Her eyes were filled with hatred as if she had gone mad. A talisman silently appeared in her hand. It was engraved with complicated and profound inscriptions, sealing up a great power. She directly tossed out the talisman in her hand. However, she did not toss it towards Sheng Luo, who had killed her two junior brothers. Instead, she tossed it towards Jianchen, who was fighting Sheng Luo. As soon as Jianchen used the Daluo sword chi, he sensed the woman's actions, and his face immediately changed. However, it was too late. The talisman moved extremely quickly, arriving before Jianchen in a single instance. It exploded with a great boom. Terrifying energy that was as vast as the ocean surged out in a single instance, like an erupting volcano, slamming into Jianchen. Spurt. Chapter 1926. The power of the talisman was simply too strong. It had already surpassed the limits of the Overgod realm and entered the Divine King realm. It was equivalent to the power of a Divine King expert's attack. To an Overgod, it was quite terrifying. Even though Jianchen's chaotic body had reached the 11th layer, he was still heavily injured for being caught off guard. The Daluo sword chi collided with Sheng Luo's black hole at the same time. The two of them were actually evenly matched, and they both dispersed with a boom. However, in the next moment, the shock waves from the talisman swept over. Like a hot knife through butter, it destroyed the shock waves from the Daluo sword chi and the black hole, forming a visible shock wave that swept off into the distance. All the overgods along the way were blown away. Sheng Luo's face changed as well. Demonic aura enveloped him, and the laws of devouring coiled around him. He retreated with lightning speed. However, even with that being the case, he was still blown away by the shock wave of energy. He was covered in dust and reduced to a horrible shape. All the Divine King on the walls personally witnessed this. The Grand Imperial Protector immediately became furious, and he swore at the people of the Earth Spirit sect. Earth Spirit sect, you're so despicable. You're actually killing one another in such an important situation, and you've even bestowed a Divine King-level talisman. Are you trying to kill Jianchen completely? The three elders of the Earth Spirit sect were motionless. Elder Mu said sternly, "Please don't misunderstand, Imperial Protector. This has nothing to do with us. It's all because of this wretched disciple. We will definitely punish this wretched disciple after this matter." She acted on her own? Haha, what if she acted on her own? You're pushing all the blame onto the disciple with just a simple sentence. An elder from the Taoist sect of Calm Cloud sneered. Even if you flip through the entire Earth Spirit sect, you won't be able to find a few talismans of such high quality. If she did not receive your permission, do you think a female disciple would be bold enough to use such a precious talisman to kill a supreme overgod of the divine kingdom of Pingtian? Furthermore, such a precious rune is not something that an ordinary guardian disciple can possess. Since your Taoist sect of Calm Clouds believes that we're the ones behind this, then I hope that you can produce evidence as well. If you can't, then don't slander us and make false accusations. An elder from the Earth Spirit sect retorted. However, he stared in the direction of the explosion without blinking at all. Earth Spirit sect, you really have gone too far this time. This divine king-level talisman has injured quite a few of our clansmen. Another divine king said. His face was sunken and very ugly. He looked at the three elders of the Earth Spirit sect with great hostility. He was an elder of one of the top clans in the Divine Court Empire. When the Earth Spirit Sect's protector detonated the Overgod talisman, there just happened to be an Overgod and his clan nearby, so he was caught in the crossfire. The three elders of the Earth Spirit Sect clasped their fists and apologized, claiming that they would compensate them afterwards. Only then did the expressions of the Divine King from the various organizations improve slightly. Jianshan is probably done for after enduring the full power of a Divine King-level talisman. Although some of the supreme prodigies on the Overgod's plaque can rival the Divine King, that's only for those who rank towards the very front and possess extremely shocking talent. Moreover, the Divine King is just an ordinary Divine King. However, the power of the talisman. What a pity! What a pity! A supreme figure like Jianshan has actually died like this. Many Overgods shook their heads and sighed as they stood on the walls. Their faces were filled with pity. They did not believe that Jianshan could survive the attack of a Divine King-level talisman. The Imperial Protector of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian flew up as soon as possible, directly shooting towards Jianshan. He wanted to bring Jianshan back. Imperial Protector, don't. Immediately, a Divine King stopped the Grand Imperial Protector, but the Grand Imperial Protector ignored him. Jianshan was a member of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. If he died, it would only be the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian that suffered losses. The other Divine Kings could ignore Jianshan's safety, but the Grand Imperial Protector was unable to do so. As a matter of fact, a few Divine Kings were happy to see this happen. They were eager for something to happen to Jianshan. The Divine Kingdom of Pingtian already possessed a primordial realm expert. If they gained another one in the future, one who was on the Overgod's plaque and had a chance to make it onto the Divine King's plaque, they would basically be riding on their heads. However, the heavenly demon religion naturally could not just stand by and watch as the Grand Imperial Protector moved. If a Divine King entered the battlefield of Overgods, there would be far too many uncertainties. The heavenly demon religion naturally did not wish for something like that to happen. Moreover, Sheng Luo was still on the battlefield. They could not allow anything to happen to him. As a result, as soon as the Grand Imperial Protector moved, a burly man appeared before him, blocking his path. Yin Wuming. The Grand Imperial Protector's face changed drastically the moment he saw the burly man. Yin Wuming smiled viciously. Without saying anything, he directly threw a punch at the Grand Imperial Protector. It was straightforward and decisive, without any hesitation at all. His simple punch possessed devastating power. It was extremely terrifying. Wherever the fist passed by, space would distort and vision would blur. Terrifying energy condensed on the fist. Just the pressure of the energy was enough to make the Grand Imperial Protector tremble. Yin Wuming's strength had already reached the late Divine Kings, and he had obtained his position as commander of the 9th Army after defeating all his opponents in the Hall of Protectors. His strength was unquestionable. Even the 9 Divine Kings that Jianshan had encountered in the Eam Mountains of Seven's despair paled in comparison to Yin Wuming. Oh no, Yin Wuming has moved. The expressions of the Divine Kings on the fortress all changed. The 2 subjects from the imperial family immediately flew up to receive him. However, they were clearly too late. With a heavy sound, the Grand Imperial Protector vomited blood from Yin Wuming's punch. He was heavily injured. The 2 subjects from the Heavenly Moon Empire immediately kept Yin Wuming busy, giving the Grand Imperial Protector time to escape. The 2 subjects were extremely powerful as well, but not only did they fail to gain the upper hand against Yin Wuming when they worked together, they were even suppressed by him. Ha ha ha, since you're so impatient to fight, I'll play with you. A loud laugh rang out from the heavenly demon religion's side. The commander of the 8th Army, Luo Duo, had moved as well. He smiled bloodthirstily. I'll take you on as well. The commander of the 7th Army, Yashi Lian, giggled. She was enchanting, and her voice was filled with charm. It was enough to make people fall into a trance. The Grand Imperial Protector's actions affected the entire situation. The Divine King from both sides began to fight at that moment as well. Aside from the 3 commanders, There were a few divine kings from the Hall of Protectors on the side of the heavenly demon religion. They were no weaker than the divine king from the divine kingdom of Pingtian. However, a battle between divine kings was just too destructive. Moreover, it was a battle between so many divine kings. As a result, the divine king from both sides all flew out of the cloud plane and engaged in a great battle in outer space. It was far enough from the ground. Let alone a battle between divine kings, even a battle between primordial realm experts would not affect others. In the blink of an eye, all the divine kings from both sides had left, only leaving behind a few overgods to command the battle. However, the divine king and the vice leader of the Empyrean demon cult, Huayan, remained seated in the air. A chessboard was placed between the two of them, and the powerful ripples of energy were unable to get within 300 meters of them. At this moment, the two of them were completely focused. They stared at the chessboard without blinking at all, as if they had devoted all of their attention to it. Every single piece on the chessboard possessed the vital energies of the two primordial realm experts. On the surface, they seemed to be playing a game of chess. However, they were actually fighting in a different way. Chapter 1927. The patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, Jianshun, had been attacked by a divine king-level talisman. Naturally, many overgods had seen this. Even though many of them believed that Jianshun had already died to the talisman, it did not cause too great of a commotion. In such a large-scale battle between overgods could die at any time. Even the death of a supreme overgod like Jianshun only caused a few people to sigh emotionally. What a pity. You've already died before I could even decide the outcome of the battle, Sheng Luo said with pity. He had also been struck by the shockwaves from the divine king-level talisman, but as he was far enough away and Jianshun had blocked most of the power, he was not injured. Jianshun, I'd like to see how you're still alive now. The woman who had launched a sneak attack on Jianshun with the divine king-level talisman had already retreated from the battlefield. She stared in the direction where Jianshun had been coldly as she gloated. Ha ha ha. Don't you have the strength to make it onto the Overgod's plaque? But so what? You still died to my hands in the end. Although the divine king-level talisman was bestowed upon me by Master, and it was Master and the other two elders who ordered me to kill you, it doesn't change the fact that you've died to my hands. Let alone a supreme overgod. Even if you're the divine king, I'll make you pay the price for offending my earth spirit sect, the woman sneered. The woman sneered. As soon as she thought about how she had personally killed a supreme overgod, an enemy that she hated to the core, she felt great joy. However, the woman's smile suddenly froze. Her eyes widened as if she had seen the most unbelievable thing in her life. She became stunned. A bloodied person slowly hovered up from the center of the battlefield. Blood covered his face, so it was impossible to make out his appearance. However, an intense sword aura surged from his body. Mixed within it was an extremely strong killing intent. The killing intent was so powerful that it was enough to cause the world to change color and origin energy to tremble. The many overgods who fought there were all shocked as well. Fear filled their faces. It's Jianshun. Heavens, the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan is actually still alive? How is this possible? The patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan actually managed to survive after taking on an attack from a divine king level inscription, which is equivalent to taking on a strike from a divine king expert. An uproar immediately broke out in the field. If Jianshun had really died, it wouldn't have caused such a huge reaction from the crowd, because in their eyes, it was only natural. However, he was actually still alive. He had taken on an attack from a divine king as an overgod, yet he was only injured. Everyone was shocked and filled with disbelief. This is impossible. This is impossible. How is he still alive? How is he still alive? How is he still alive? A divine king level inscription actually failed to kill him when he was caught off guard. How is this possible? The woman with the fan had already retreated to the walls of the fortress. She stared at Jianshun, who had flown back into the air in complete shock. Jianshun hovered in the air. At that moment, the killing intent he gave off was so powerful that it was truly terrifying. Just the killing intent alone was enough to deter the surrounding over-gods of the heavenly demon religion. Even though many people already knew that Jianshen was heavily injured, the killing intent still shocked all of them. They did not dare to approach him. The over-gods of the heavenly demon religion did not dare to attack Jianshen either. The Earth Spirit sect. Jianshen stared at the woman with the fan on the wall. He gritted his teeth as he growled. He had fought against the supreme over-god of the heavenly demon religion and stopped the supreme over-god from slaughtering the experts on his side. Not only had he saved the people of the divine kingdom of Pingtian, but he had also prevented the people of the other organizations from dying to Sheng Luo's hands. However, he had never thought that he would actually suffer a sneak attack from someone on his side at that crucial moment. He had taken on the power of a divine king-level inscription while he was caught off guard. If it were any other time, he would have been fine with the sneak attack from the Earth Spirit sect. But what was the current situation? The heavenly demon religion was such a powerful enemy, yet there was actually someone who ignored the bigger picture and attacked someone on his side. This made Jianshen extremely furious. The flames of fury in his heart were enough to obliterate the sky. Actions like this could never be forgiven. In the next moment, Jianshen directly charged off as a streak of light. He did not continue killing the people of the heavenly demon religion. Instead, he directly charged towards the walls, towards the woman with the fan on the wall. The woman's actions had completely infuriated Jianshen. As a result, Jianshen wanted to kill her regardless of the situation. If he did not kill her, how was he supposed to vent his anger? How was he supposed to quell his fury? Patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, calm down. Patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, please calm down. Consider the bigger picture. Don't let your emotions affect your decisions. Many overgods from the various organizations communicated with Jianshen secretly. Now that they were facing a great enemy, not only would it be a blow to their morale, but it would also have an extraordinarily great impact. Protector Gong and Protector Wu from the Earth Spirit sect blocked Jianshen as soon as possible. They bellowed at Jianshen, Patriarch of the Tianyuan clan. Why aren't you doing your best to kill the enemy before us? The two protectors spoke righteously, completely ignoring the fact that their junior sister had launched a sneak attack on Jianshen. Piss off. Jianshen was unfazed. He bellowed out furiously as killing intent filled his terrifyingly sharp eyes. As he swung the startling rainbow sword, it shone with dazzling sword chi. Not only did the sword chi not weaken at all, but it became even more powerful. Protector Gong and Protector Wu were heavily injured in the first place, so they were even less of an opponent when faced with such powerful sword chi. Just a single strand of sword chi cleaved them in half at the waist. Who dares to stop me? Jianshen bellowed out furiously. He used the startling rainbow sword to carve out a path, directly charging towards the woman with the fan. He was furious. At that moment, Jianshen seemed like an enraged primordial beast. He was even more powerful than before he was injured. He was unstoppable and extremely valiant, causing all the overgods along the way to avoid him, regardless of friend or foe. They looked at Jianshen in fear. Is the Patriarch of the Tianyuan clan really injured? Why do I feel like he's much more terrifying than before? Is the Patriarch of the Tianyuan clan injured or not? Many overgods paid attention to Jianshen as they fought their opponents. All of them were shocked. Junior Sister Chanrun, Protector Wu, and Protector Gong called out to the woman from afar. However, as soon as they finished speaking, a few overgods from the heavenly demon religion surrounded them. Demonic auras surged, and the two protectors' heads were smashed to pieces, wiping out their souls. Protector Gong and Protector Wu had both died in battle. They had died to the hands of the heavenly demon religion. The woman's face was pale now. She trembled as she stood on the walls. Her gaze towards Jianshen was filled with fear. Afterwards, she immediately took out a teleportation formation disc and activated it as quickly as possible. She vanished in a flash of white light. Boom! As soon as the woman fled, a powerful strand of sword chi shot over, directly striking where she stood and producing a great sound. Jianshun hovered before the walls of the fortress as he stared in the direction that the woman had vanished in. His face was extremely sunken. Suddenly, he glanced past the battlefield and stared at the other disciples of the Earth Spirit sect. The light in his eyes flickered with uncertainty. The 7 overgods from the Earth Spirit sect were not the only ones who had come as reinforcements. The 7 overgods who had attacked the Dong and province were only under Elder Mu. Out of the 3 elders who had come to the divine kingdom of Pingtian this time, every single one of them had brought a few disciples. Right now, he was considering whether he should kill off the disciples of the other 2 elders. The woman had launched a sneak attack under such circumstances, and she had even used a Divine King-level talisman. Afterwards, when he tried to kill her, Protector Wu and Protector Gong had even stopped him. Jianshun refused to believe that the elders of the Earth Spirit sect had nothing to do with this. As a result, Jianshun hated the Earth Spirit sect to the bone. He was tempted to kill all their disciples. Please listen to Xiaoyao's prestige. Once there are any changes to the updates in the future, Xiaoyao will inform you through prestige. Search Xingxingxiao 110. It was not complicated. It was Xiaoyao's pseudonym and a police number. Alternatively, they could directly search for Xiaoyao's pseudonym. Once there were 20,000 people in prestige, a function could be activated. Many authors use this function to send red packets to their readers in return for their support. Chapter 1928. Jianshun, don't be impatient. I promise that I will get the Earth Spirit sect to give you an explanation after this battle. The matter at hand is to stop the heavenly demon religion. Don't panic before the enemy. It'll only bring you more harm than good. Just as Jianshun hesitated over whether he should vent his anger on the other people from the Earth Spirit sect, the Divine King's voice rang out in his head. Jianshun turned around and stared at the Divine King who was playing chess with Huayan in the sky. He could clearly sense 2 devastating powers clashing on the chessboard between the 2 of them. Jianshun sucked in a deep breath and slowly withdrew his killing intent. He did his best to quell his anger as he thought, Your Majesty, since you've already promised me that you'll get the Earth Spirit sect to give me a satisfactory explanation, I'd like to see just what kind of explanation the Earth Spirit sect will give me in the end. I'll let that woman live for a few more days. In the end, Jianshun did not kill his own people. However, he had already committed today's grievances to memory. On the battlefield below, the battle between the 2 sides was extremely intense. Many overgods had died, while the weaker soldiers suffered even greater casualties. As far as the eye could see, the ground was already completely crimson red. Corpses covered the ground like a carpet while blood converged into a stream. The air was suffused with a dense smell of blood while severed limbs covered the ground, causing it to be extremely miserable. The 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion relied on formations. Every 10,000 people stood in a huge formation. An army of 300,000 in a total of 300,000 people engaged in an intense battle against the army of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. It had to be mentioned that an army of over 100 million possessed an absolute advantage in terms of numbers against 300,000. However, when the battle truly began, it was a one-sided battle. It was not the army of the heavenly demon religion that was defeated. Instead, it was the army of over 100 million from the divine kingdom of Pingtian. The 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion rampaged through the army of the divine kingdom of Pingtian as if they were invincible. Wherever they passed by, flesh and blood would fly as miserable cries rang out. The ground was littered with corpses. Even though the divine kingdom of Pingtian side also had their armies in battle formations, they were nowhere close to the formation of the heavenly demon religion. Not to mention the huge difference in the level of the formation, just the individual strength of the soldiers was on a completely different level. On the walls of a stronghold, countless soldiers used large amounts of divine crystals to provide energy for the formations, activating all of the formations on the stronghold. The white energy beams shot out interweaved into a large net, continuously attacking the 3 legions of the heavenly demon religion. Even though quite a few people from the 3 armies of the Empyrean demon cult had died to the formations of the fortress, The 10,000-man formation continued to function without them. Even though it had weakened, it was still invincible. Siyu, Houston, Ruijin, Honglian, and Blackfish gathered together with the gods from the powerful clans of the Dong province. They looked after one another and worked with the other gods to stop the formation of the heavenly demon religion. Gods died at every moment. Even 2 gods from the powerful clans of the Dong and province had died, while the others were all injured. Siyu and Houston displayed extraordinary strength. They were late gods, but the battle prowess they erupted with was no weaker than regular overgods. The 2 of them played an important role in stopping the formation of 10,000 people. Ruijin, Honglian, and Heiyu all wore armor and wielded saint artifacts. They unleashed their full strength without holding back at all. They all reverted to their original forms, the cries of dragons and phoenixes. They worked together with a huge crocodile. However, even with that being the case, the 3 of them were still heavily injured. They were covered in blood and terrifying wounds. Even though Siyu and Houston possessed great battle prowess, they struggled to remain unscathed on such a vast battlefield. They were also heavily injured. Suddenly, the power of everyone in the formation of the heavenly demon religion fused together and condensed into a huge black spear. It shot towards Siyu with a terrifying presence. Originally, the attacks of the formation of 10,000 people from the heavenly demon religion were rather scattered. They would attack multiple targets in the surroundings at the same time. The people from the divine kingdom of Pingtian could fend them off with some difficulty if they worked together. But now, all the power in the formation had suddenly gathered together and attacked a single person. As a result, the attack was extremely terrifying. It had reached the peak of overgods. The black spear was powerful enough to kill overgods with ease. Even a prodigy like Luo Yunfei would need to avoid the attack. He would not dare to receive a head-on. "Be careful," Houston growled. The power of this attack was too terrifying. Sacred Feather, who was merely a heavenly god, was almost certain to die in front of this attack. Sacred Feather's expression became unprecedentedly solemn as he sensed a great danger. Moreover, his presence had been locked onto, so he could not dodge. Oomph. At this moment, a cold snort rang out. The bloody Jianshan descended from the sky and blocked Siyu's path. He directly tossed out the startling rainbow sword in his hand. Swish! The startling rainbow sword shot out with destructive chaotic force as it was surrounded by a layer of laws of the sword. It collided heavily with the black spear condensed from the formation of 10,000 people. With a boom, the black spear that even Luo Yunfei and the others wanted to avoid was shattered by the startling rainbow sword. Jianshan waved his hand, and the startling rainbow sword returned to his hand as a streak of light. He wielded the sword as he radiated with terrifying battle intent. He directly charged towards the formation of 10,000 people. I need to get through their formation, or the losses of the soldiers below will be unimaginable. Jianshan thought. The formation of 10,000 people was just too powerful. Even prodigies like Luo Yunfei needed to work together to get through it. However, all the overgods from the divine kingdom of Pingtian had taken part in the battle now. They engaged in an intense battle against the overgods of the heavenly demon religion. They were unable to free up enough people. Even if they did, they would be stopped by the overgods of the heavenly demon religion. Naturally, there were overgods from the heavenly demon religion who wanted to stop them when they saw an overgod attack the formation. However, when they saw Jianshan, they immediately shrunk back and did not dare to charge over. Even a few late overgods were unwilling to stop Jianshan. They could only watch as Jianshan attacked the formation. Sheng Luo stood at the back as he stared in Jianshan's direction through the endless crowd. His face was uneasy. I never thought I'd come across such a prodigy on the cloud plane. He actually possesses such great battle prowess after enduring a strike from the Divine King's talisman. Sheng Luo was secretly surprised. He was a supreme overgod who had made it onto the overgod's plaque. His name was clearly engraved there, but he discovered that there was still quite a difference between him and Jianshan. This Jianshan is still hiding some of his strength. You're nowhere near his opponent right now. Let's go. Our trial on the cloud plane ends here. Let's go to the other planes and have a look. The branches of our religion on the other planes are also involved in battles. It's said that a supreme overgod has appeared on the He plane as well. He's only ranked 5 places higher than you on the overgod's plaque. If you fight him, it'll be even more effective for your training. At this moment, a middle-aged man in black clothes silently appeared beside Sheng Luo. He seemed dignified, but he seemed extremely ordinary. He said to Sheng Luo emotionlessly, "Are you saying that Jianshin hasn't displayed his full strength yet?" Sheng Luo asked in surprise. The middle-aged man nodded. "I only sensed his strength when he resisted the Divine King's talisman earlier." "That's right. This Jianshin is extremely powerful. At the very least, he's invincible among overgods. If the Divine King doesn't appear, there's probably no one who can keep him at bay. The difference between the two of you is quite large." The middle-aged man paused there before continuing, "But don't underestimate yourself. Don't forget that you're the Grand Elder's disciple. With the Grand Elder's nurturing and the resources of the heavenly demon religion, your future is limitless. Moreover, the cultivation method you practice was personally passed down by the Great Elder. Once you reach the 9th layer, you'll be able to catch up to the current Jianshin." Sheng Luo stared at Jianshin when he heard that. Battle intent surged from his eyes, and he said, "Jianshin, I'll remember you. I will fight you again in the future. Please listen to Xiaoyao's prestige. Once there are any updates in the future, Xiaoyao will inform you through prestige. Search Xingxing Xiao 110. It was not complicated. It was Xinxing Xiaoyao's pseudonym and a phone number. Alternatively, they could directly search for Xinxing Xiaoyao's pseudonym. Once prestige reached 20,000 people, a function would be activated. Many authors would use this function to send red packets to their readers in return for their support. Chapter 1929. Siyu, Houston, Ruijin, Hongyan, Blackfish, and so on all stood behind Jianshin, as well as the gods from the powerful clans of the Dong and province. Jianshin stood with his sword. He used his body, which was not particularly burly, to block everyone. No matter how ferocious the shockwaves were, they were unable to shake him at all. At that moment, he was extremely sturdy. His body was exceptionally sturdy. Even though he was bathed in blood, it could not hide the invincible and fearless domineering aura emanating from his body. He turned into a streak of light and directly blocked the formation of 10,000 people from the heavenly demon religion with a surging presence. Demonic aura immediately surged from the formation when they saw Jianshin charge over alone. The vital energies of the 10,000 soldiers of the heavenly demon religion fused together as they poured all their energy into the formation. Through the formation's amplification and conversion, they suddenly shot out as a thick, black pillar of light. Boom! Jianshin's startling rainbow collided loudly with a black pillar of light. The black pillar of light was dispersed by Jianshin's strike, forming a terrifying storm of energy that wreaked havoc in the surroundings. Jianshin remained as steady as a mountain within the storm of energy. His presence increased once again with the strike. Right now, he really was like an injured beast. He was extraordinarily terrifying, becoming more and more valiant as he fought. In reality, the strength he displayed was constantly increasing as he unleashed it bit by bit. On the other side, the formation of 10,000 soldiers from the heavenly demon religion trembled violently. Not only was their advance halted, but the powerful shockwaves of energy slammed into the formation with terrifying force as well, causing the 10,000 soldiers to stagger backwards. Jianshin moved through the air, going against the storm of energy. He directly stabbed out with his sword. Sword chi shot out like a streak of light, illuminating the sky. With resplendent light, he directly split the devastating storm of energy before stabbing into the formation without slowing down at all. The strike was extremely powerful, enough to cause the expressions of countless overgods to change. Vaguely, it seemed to surpass the threshold of overgod and reach an even higher level. Immediately, The formation that withstood Jianshen's strike began to shake violently. The formation that was controlled by the 10,000 people began to flicker. Among the people who formed the formation, more than half of them spat out a mouthful of blood and were severely injured. Jianshen had directly heavily injured several thousand people with that strike. He was so powerful that many of the overgods could not help but feel secretly shocked. How was the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan so terrifyingly powerful? He's completely surpassed Luo Yunfei. The patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan endured an attack from a divine king-level talisman earlier. Look at how he's covered in blood. He must be heavily injured. But why is he still so powerful? Is the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan an overgod or a divine king? At this moment, the overgods who fought in the sky began to pay attention to Jianshen, regardless of whether they were allies or foes. As for the overgods from the heavenly demon religion, they were secretly worried. Before the battle began, their commander had warned them to protect the formation. Once the overgods from the divine kingdom of Pingtian attacked the formation, they had to stop them. This was because once the formation was destroyed, the battle prowess of the army of the heavenly demon religion would plummet, resulting in a large number of casualties. However, when they saw how powerful Jianshen was, they all shivered in fear. None of them were bold enough to stop him. One or two prodigies like Luo Yunfei were basically sending themselves to their deaths. They were unable to mobilize any more people in a short period of time. Boom! With another great sound, Jianshen struck the formation with devastating might again. Immediately, the formation shook violently, and the 10,000 soldiers of the heavenly demon religion constantly vomited blood. Over half of them became haggard. Jianshen was just too powerful. The 10,000 soldiers were all deities at the very least. Moreover, a small portion of the formations formed by gods actually struggled to withstand Jianshen's attacks. Oh no, the sixth group is in danger. Let's go reinforce them. Sensing the danger in this place, several large arrays of tens of thousands of people began to move closer. Demonic auras filled the sky as they charged over in an aggressive manner. Jianshen did not give them any time to catch their breaths, nor did he give them a chance to reinforce themselves. The startling rainbow sword shone brightly as it descended from the sky as a huge streak of light. He struck the formation 3 times consecutively. The 3 swords flowed smoothly and were almost perfectly linked together. The first strike had directly sunk the formation of 10,000 people into the ground. The formation trembled violently, faintly surpassing the limits of what it could withstand. The second strike directly caused the formation to show signs of shattering. Cracks appeared, and powerful strands of sword chi seeped in. They scattered like rain, directly killing over 1,000 people. With the third strike, the formation finally collapsed. It shattered loudly, and over half of the 10,000 godhood soldiers died to Jianshen's strike. Only 2,000 or 3,000 people survived, and all of them were heavily injured. None of them were unscathed. The overgods on both sides were stunned. Jianshen had destroyed a formation of 10,000 people in just a few strikes with lightning-like speed. He had even killed over half of the people in the formation. His shocking battle prowess had deeply shocked every single one of them. As soon as the formation collapsed, the formation scroll actually flew off by itself. Afterwards, it turned into a blur and shot off into the distance with unbelievable speed, vanishing in a single instance. This stunned Jianshen, who was about to collect the formation scroll. He stared in the direction it had vanished in and felt speechless. This had taken him by surprise. He had never thought that the formation scroll would actually flee by itself, and it would have done so quickly as well. This should be one of the protective measures of the heavenly demon religion formation scrolls, Jianshen thought. The light in his eyes flickered, and then he charged towards the second formation. Now, the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion had all recognized Jianshen's power. They dared not face him alone. Immediately, the 3 formations worked together, surrounding Jianshen in a triangular formation. They used all the power of the formations to attack Jianshen alone. However, Jinshin's strength had reached an even higher level. Even if he did not erupt with his full strength, he was not someone the three formations could deal with. As a matter of fact, it was very difficult for them to even stall for a moment. After a few strikes, the second formation was destroyed by Jinshin with a boom. Several thousand deities died to Jinshin's sword, and the formation scroll also flew off by itself. However, this time, Jinshin was prepared. As soon as the formation scroll fled, he formed a seal with his hand and used the linear lightning release, directly pursuing it as a bolt of lightning. The formation scroll was just too extraordinary. It could combine the power of deities and erupt with the might of peak over gods. It could both attack and defend. If he could obtain a formation scroll like that, it would be far too important to the Tianyuan family. It could be used as a clan treasure. Chapter 1930. Jinshin left the battlefield in pursuit of the formation scroll. However, Jinshin had already destroyed 2 of the 10,000-man formations of the heavenly demon religion. He had killed over 10,000 soldiers of the heavenly demon religion, greatly reducing the pressure on the divine kingdom of Pingtian's side. They could send even more gods to fend off the remaining formations. On a plain far away from the battlefield, Jinshin used the linear lightning release and turned into a bolt of lightning. He had already caught up to the formation scroll that was still fleeing. He directly grabbed it tightly. Clearly, the heavenly demon religion had set up something on the formation scroll. The moment Jinshin grabbed it, a great power immediately leaked out in an attempt to break free from Jinshin's grasp. At the same time, the formation scroll seemed to be guided by a mysterious power. Even though Jinshin grabbed it tightly, it did not slow down at all. It basically dragged Jinshin off into the distance. It moved extremely quickly, crossing thousands of kilometers in a single instance. In just a short amount of time, Jinshin had been dragged far away from the battlefield by the formation scroll. However, he still did not give up. He was determined to obtain the formation scroll. In his palm, a powerful chaotic force with a destructive aura emanated from it. It wrapped around Jinshin's hand and the formation scroll tightly. At the same time, the laws of the sword condensed from space, revolving around Jinshin. Jinshin used the power of the laws of the sword and chaotic force to suppress the formation scroll's power. Finally, the formation scroll's resistance became weaker and weaker. In the end, it fell silent, lying in Jinshin's hand as if it had lost all its power. However, Jinshin still did not dare to become careless. He had never seen a formation scroll that could run away on its own. Just in case, he did not remove the chaotic force and laws of the sword. However, at this moment, Jinshin's face changed slightly. He suddenly looked up at the sky. High up in the sky, several formation flags turned into beams of light and descended from the sky with lightning speed. They instantly formed a large formation around Jinshin, enveloping the surrounding area and trapping Jinshin. When the formation was activated, the scene before Jinshin's eyes suddenly changed. He appeared in a desert filled with yellow sand. The sky and earth formed a line, and he couldn't see the end of it. At the same time, an incomparably resplendent blade light suddenly appeared behind Jinshin. Terrifying power was compressed on the blade. With the power to cut through space, it mercilessly slashed towards Jinshin's head. Not only was this strike fast, accurate, and vicious, wanting to directly shatter Jinshin's soul, but the power it contained was as vast as the sea. It was extremely terrifying, causing space to distort. The blade light and the formation were activated at almost the same time. They wanted to kill Jinshin while he was unprepared. However, Jinshin was no longer the same as before. When he saw the formation flags descend from the sky, he had already become vigilant. A gleam of light flashed through Jinshin's eyes as he became extremely stern. Without any hesitation, his chaotic Niden immediately spewed out a large amount of chaotic force, filling his entire body. He pushed the power of the chaotic body to its limits in a single moment. At the same time, chaotic force burned like flames on the startling rainbow sword in his hand. With the power of the laws of the sword, he slashed behind him without any hesitation. Jianshun understood just how powerful his ambusher was, so he used his full strength in this attack. He did not hold back at all. The strength of the 11th layer of the chaotic body was finally revealed at that moment. Boom! With a boom, the startling rainbow sword collided with the blade light behind him. It was like two comets had collided, creating an intense explosion. Terrifying ripples of energy caused the space in the formation to distort violently. Jianshun was blown away after the strike as blood oozed from the corner of his mouth. He had taken on the power of the Divine King's talisman without any preparation earlier, so he was already injured. Even though he had suppressed his injuries, he had not fully recovered. Now that he had clashed with such an expert, it obviously affected his injuries as well, making them even worse. Blood oozed from the corner of his mouth. Jianshun drifted back several hundred meters like a leaf before hovering in the air. He was emotionless as he stared ahead coldly. There, a man holding a long saber quietly appeared. He wore a mask on his face. The mask pulsed strangely. Not only was it impenetrable to the senses of the soul, but it even concealed the presence of the person wearing it. And this person's strength was a bona fide divine king. The divine king was a supreme expert in a divine kingdom. Their status was extremely great, and they were revered by countless people. Even in those ancient empires, they were extremely powerful. The divine king was a figure who could do whatever he wanted. In the imperial family, he was a subject. In a peak sect like the Earth Spirit sect, he was an elder with great authority. You're not a part of the heavenly demon religion. Who are you? Jianshun hovered in the air as he spat out a mouthful of bloody phlegm. He silently circulated his chaotic force to heal as he glared at the person before him. This person did not practice the heavenly demon religion. Moreover, if the divine king of the heavenly demon religion wanted to kill him, there was no need for him to conceal his appearance. As a result, he was certain that the person before him was a divine king from his side. Judging from how he had even concealed his presence, he was clearly worried that the slightest hint of his presence would leak out and he would be recognized. The mysterious masked divine king stared at Jianshun in surprise. He said, "The old man has underestimated you. I never thought that you'd become so powerful. You've taken a strike from the old man head on, yet you've only suffered some injuries. As for the old man's identity, you don't need to know. All you need to know is that the old man has come to kill you." The masked divine king no longer said anything else. With that, he appeared before Jianshun as if he had teleported. He swung his blade at Jianshun's head without any hesitation at all, with tremendous energy. He still wanted to kill Jianshun in a single strike. Jianshun bellowed out at the sky. His hair fluttered despite the lack of wind as a surging presence radiated from him. He used his full strength to receive the attack. The space had already been enveloped by the trapping formation, trapping the surroundings. It had become a tough prison where it was impossible to escape. As a result, he could only fight with his full strength. Jianshun had already donned the god artifact. Facing the trap of a divine king, he had to use his full strength since he was already injured. He could not hold back at all. Daluo sword. Jianshun formed a seal and used the Daluo sword right from the start. Not only did the golden sword chi contain his comprehension of the laws of the sword, but it also possessed the power of the 11th layer of the chaotic body. In the end, the sword chi broke through the limits of Overgod in a single moment, reaching the level of the Divine King. The masked Divine King was shocked by Jianshun's shocking strike. He could clearly sense just how powerful the sword chi was, which made him sigh in amazement. Was this really the power of an Overgod? Chapter 1931. With a great boom, Jianshun's Daluo sword chi was dispersed by the masked Divine King in a single strike. Violent ripples of energy wreaked havoc, causing the space there to tremble. The masked Divine King flickered with light. He used the power of laws to protect himself, easily enduring the ripples of energy. After the first strike, he immediately launched a second strike. He charged towards Jianshun with lightning-like speed as extremely terrifying energy condensed on his blade. He suddenly swung it down with the power of laws. Jinshin's eyes shone brightly. His gaze became extremely sharp, as if sword chi had shot out from his eyes. It was quite a startling sight. Chaotic force permeated his surroundings. Not only did he show no fear against the Divine King, but his battle intent surged instead. With a furious roar, he directly charged over with the startling rainbow sword, engaging in a great battle against the masked Divine King. It had to be mentioned that Jinshin was extremely powerful now that he had broken through to the 11th layer of the chaotic body. Even if he was not invincible among overgods, he was still able to take on the Divine King in an open battle despite being injured. The two of them fought extremely intensely. The ground collapsed, and the sun and moon dimmed. Powerful ripples of energy wreaked havoc in the formation, causing it to shake. The masked Divine King became more and more shocked as the battle went on. He found it more and more difficult to believe. Jinshin's strength had completely exceeded his expectations. Not only was Jinshin able to fight against him for so long without losing the upper hand, but Jinshin even became fiercer as the battle went on. Jinshin's blood did not seem to be his either. He was clearly heavily injured, but he did not seem injured at all. His presence did not wither at all. The reason why Jinshin possesses such terrifying battle prowess is all because of his strange power. What is this power? It's so great. It's clearly not at the Divine King's level, yet it can barely match up to the Divine King. Just what kind of heaven-defying cultivation method can produce such great power? The masked Divine King thought rapidly. At that moment, he became very curious about Jinshin's cultivation method. I can't drag this out any longer. I need to end this as soon as possible, just in case something else happens. The masked Divine King began to panic slightly when he failed to defeat Jinshin after so long. He immediately made up his mind and used a battle skill. All of a sudden, the might of heaven and earth descended. The masked God King raised the long saber in his hand above his head. An endless amount of energy gathered rapidly. Under the horrifying might that permeated the air, the entire space turned sticky. In a short instant, the masked Divine King finished charging up his battle skill. The sword in his hand was filled with extremely terrifying power. It was accompanied by the might of the world as it slashed towards Jinshin. When the blade was unleashed, the world lost its color. The sun, moon, and stars all dimmed. The terrifying power condensed on the blade turned into a torrent, rushing towards Jinshin with devastating power. The power of this attack was extremely terrifying. Wherever the blade passed, space would distort and origin force would disperse. It was as if space itself was about to be torn apart. A bottomless chasm even appeared in the ground. Jinshin's face became extremely solemn. This was a battle skill used by a Divine King. It was so powerful that even he felt a great sense of danger. Tai sword technique. Jinshin formed a sword technique with his hand. His body and sword fused as one. Sword chi gathered around him. He used his body as a sword, turning into a huge and resplendent sword chi that shot out. At the same time, a strand of sword chi that was only the size of a finger suddenly appeared above his head. As soon as the sword chi appeared, it radiated with earth-shaking sword chi. It was extremely terrifying. However, the masked Divine King's battle skill was accompanied by the might of the world, so the sword chi was not particularly eye-catching. Boom! The battle skill used by the Divine King was just too powerful. As soon as the two of them clashed, Jinshin was blown away while vomiting blood. A white mark appeared on the chest of the armor he wore. Even though the armor did not possess the might of a god artifact, it was still tough. As a result, the battle skill used by the Divine King was unable to damage the armor at all. However, all the power from the attack had passed through the armor and onto Jinshin. Just the powerful backlash alone made Jinshin's wounds even worse. However, in the moment they clashed, the small sword chi condensed above Jinshin's head turned into a streak of white light. It passed through the devastating storm of energy even faster than lightning and shot towards the masked Divine King's forehead. The sword chi moved just too quickly. It used the might of the world and the devastating storm of energy as a disguise, so the masked divine king failed to notice it immediately. By the time he noticed it, it was already too late. Spurt. The finger-sized sword chi directly pierced the masked divine king's forehead, leaving behind a bloody hole. The masked divine king shrieked out in pain. The divine king's presence that had condensed around him rapidly dispersed at that moment. Even the blade in his hand fell to the ground. He clutched his head with both hands as he shrieked out in extreme pain. His face had become extremely pale. As for the mask on his face, it shattered with a bang. An old face hidden under the mask was revealed. It was an old man. His face was covered in wrinkles, but his facial muscles were all twisted right now. Intense pain radiated from his soul. His entire body trembled violently. I never thought that his soul would still be intact after taking on a strand of profound sword chi. The divine king really is powerful. In the distance, Jianshan climbed to his feet with a pale face. He silently circulated his chaotic force to heal as he slowly made his way towards the divine king. Blood constantly dripped from his body. As he advanced, he left behind a bloody path. Very soon, Jianshan arrived before the howling divine king. However, when he saw the divine king's face clearly, he became stunned before becoming extremely cold. He originally thought that it was extremely likely that the divine king who had launched a sneak attack on him was one of the 3 elders of the Earth Spirit sect. After all, he had already fallen out with the Earth Spirit sect after the woman had used a divine king-level talisman to launch a sneak attack on him. As a result, it made sense for the 3 elders of the Earth Spirit sect to try and kill him. However, he had never thought that the divine king who had trapped him in a trapping formation before trying to kill him would actually be this person. Taoist sect of calm clouds, I, Jianshan, have no grievances with you. May I ask why you want to kill me? Jianshan stared at the old man coldly as he spoke with an extremely cold voice. The old man was one of the elders of the Taoist sect of calm clouds. Jianshan had many guesses about the divine king who had launched a sneak attack on him. He had also considered the possibility that it was not a member of the Earth Spirit sect, but some other organization. However, he had never thought that it would actually be an elder of the Taoist sect of calm clouds. Earlier, in the main hall of the fortress, the Taoist sect of calm clouds was the only organization that had shown any friendliness towards him. They had even stood by his side to suppress the elders of the Earth Spirit sect. Chapter 1932. Tell me, I have no enmity with your Taoist sect of calm clouds, so why do you want to kill me? Moreover, you've even laid down a God King level trapping formation to cut off any possibility of me escaping. You're clearly trying to kill me. You're clearly trying to set me up, Jianshan said with a heavy voice. His voice was extremely cold. Monstrous killing intent and fury brewed in his heart. The person who wanted to kill him was not the divine king of the Earth Spirit sect, nor was it the divine king of the other peak organizations. Instead, it was the Taoist sect of calm clouds that had been the closest and friendliest to him. This had completely exceeded his expectations. At this moment, the elder of the Taoist sect of calm clouds had already suppressed the heart-wrenching pain from his soul. After learning that Jianshan had already discovered his identity, his face immediately became extremely ugly. It was accompanied by heavy disbelief. He had never thought that not only would he fail to kill Jianshan with his strength when he tried to kill him, he would end up heavily injured and exposed instead. After all, he was not one of those people who had just reached the Divine King level. Instead, he had been stuck at the early Divine King level for over 100,000 years. He had already reached the peak of the early Divine King level and was about to reach the mid-Divine King level. Jianshan, since you already know the old man's identity, there's no need to say anything more. Let's fight. If you want to leave here alive today, the only way is to kill the old man. The Divine King of the Taoist sect of calm clouds said coldly. He took out a pill from his space ring and swallowed it as quickly as he could before continuing to attack Jianshan with his blade. My identity has already been exposed. I have to kill Jianshan today, no matter what. The elder of the Taoist sect of calm clouds was already determined to kill Jianshan when he attacked. If his identity had not been exposed, he could have chosen to flee. However, Since Jianshin knew his identity now, he could not flee no matter what, or there would be endless problems in the future. However, he did not have a strong physique like Jianshin. With his primordial spirit injured, his battle prowess was directly affected. He was no longer at his peak. Jianshan channeled his primal chaos force and protected his body with a sword light. The startling rainbow, sword light sword, turning into a waterfall as it fought against the elder of the Calm Cloud Great Sect. Compared to the injured elder of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds, Jinshin's battle prowess did not weaken at all. Even though he was heavily injured and covered in blood, he could unleash his full strength with the support of the powerful chaotic body. Jinshin blocked the attacks of the elders of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds as he quickly consumed a soul recovery pill to replenish the strand of profound sword chi. Although he could use 2 strands of profound sword chi at once, he would use up all the power of his primordial spirit. At that time, his battle prowess would be reduced to its weakest state. If he could not kill a divine king, he would definitely be the one to die. As a result, Jianshin only dared to use a single strand of profound sword chi. He needed to recover 80% of the power of his primordial spirit before he could use the second strand. You want to kill me because you want to obtain my cultivation method, right? Jianshan yelled at the elder of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds. Their battle was extremely intense. The shockwaves of energy in the sky surged like huge waves. They were extremely violent. The two of them were injured to varying degrees. Jianshin had been struck by the elder's blade several times, causing him to vomit blood. His organs had all been shattered. The elder of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds was quite injured as well. His body was covered in vicious slashes, and a sword had even pierced through his chest. The blood of the divine king filled the sky. Every single droplet of blood pulsed with powerful energy. However, as the battle continued, the elder of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds' wounds rapidly worsened, causing his battle prowess to become weaker and weaker. The piercing pain from his primordial spirit affected him greatly as well. If it were not for the fact that he was a divine king with an extremely powerful primordial spirit, just a strand of profound sword chi probably would have killed him. Suddenly, the elder of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds bellowed out furiously. An invisible flame burned on his body, causing his presence to rapidly skyrocket. He chose to burn his vital energies in exchange for great power. At the same time, he used his battle skill again. The blade in his hand turned into a blur as it ripped through space, swinging towards Jianshan with the might of the world. At the same time, he said coldly, "We're only killing you to shift the blame to the Earth Spirit sect. Once you die, no one will think that it was our Taoist sect of Calm Clouds. They'll only think of the Earth Spirit sect. However, don't worry, Jianshin. Although you're going to die to old man's hands today, our Taoist sect of Calm Clouds will ally with the divine kingdom of Pingtian and suppress the Earth Spirit sect together. You can say that we've avenged you. So that's how it is. However, I won't let your Taoist sect of Calm Clouds succeed. I will deal with my grievances with the Earth Spirit sect myself. There's no need for your Taoist sect of Calm Clouds to interfere," Jianshan said coldly. Thanks to the large number of soul recovery pills, his primordial spirit had been completely replenished from using the profound sword chi earlier. Seeing the elder's blade approach him with the might of his battle skill, Jianshin suddenly put away his god artifact armor and used his body to endure the powerful attack. At the same time, he pushed the defenses of the chaotic body to the limit. Spurt, blood splattered as the blade penetrated Jinshin's body with terrifying force. The terrifying energy almost ripped Jianshan in half, causing Jianshan to constantly vomit blood. His face became extremely pale at that moment. At the same time, a great power that belonged to the divine king rapidly spread through his body. It headed towards his soul in an attempt to shatter it. Jianshan coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood, but he sneered very soon. With a thought, surging sword intent suddenly appeared. A finger-sized strand of profound sword chi appeared above his head once again. However, it was not just one strand this time, but two. The elder's soul had already been injured. Coupled with the fact that he was burning his vital energies, his soul had become even weaker. Jinshin refused to believe that he still had the power to block the two strands of profound sword chi. Jinshin was not confident that a single strand of profound sword chi could kill a divine king. But now that he had sent out two strands of profound sword chi, Jinshin was completely confident that he could kill the divine king before him. The expression of the elder from the Taoist sect of calm clouds changed drastically when he saw the profound sword chi above Jinshin's head and sensed its might. However, before he could react, the two strands of profound sword chi shot out at the same time, entering the elder's forehead. The elder's body immediately shook violently. His weakened soul directly shattered under the attack of the two strands of profound sword chi, dispersing into the surroundings. His soul had been wiped out. A divine king of a generation had fallen here just like that. He had been slain by an overgod. At the same time, the power of Jinshin's soul was completely depleted. He only felt dizzy and drowsy. He watched as the world spun around him. In the end, he laid on the ground powerlessly as he gasped for breath. The power that belonged to a divine king continued to wreak havoc within his body, surging towards Jinshin's soul. Jinshin laid on the ground powerlessly with his eyes closed. He used the last of his will to control the chaotic force, to fend off the power and destroy it as quickly as he could. Boom! At this moment, a great rumble rang out. The trapping formation cast down by the elder collapsed loudly. Outside the formation, a woman in a green dress was slowly walking towards them. The woman was not old. She only seemed to be in her 20s. She possessed an alluring appearance, and every word and smile of hers possessed a fatal charm. In particular, her eyes seemed to constantly change. At times, they would be as gentle as water and extremely enchanting. They seemed to be able to melt the hearts of all men. At other times, they would be abnormally cold, like an iceberg that would not melt for 10,000 years. They were filled with heavy killing intent, making it impossible for people to look at them directly. Chapter 1933. The beautiful young woman in a green dress was the commander of the 7th Army of the Heavenly Demon Religion, Yashulian. She was the woman who the Divine King had told him was a nine-tailed fox. Jinshin's mind blanked out temporarily when he recognized Yashulian. He sighed gently and closed his eyes slowly. His heart had completely sunk. He had just killed the Divine King from the Taoist sect of calm clouds who wanted to kill him and escape danger. However, he had never thought that before he could catch his breath, he would come across someone even more terrifying. Jinshin would still be able to put up a fight against an early Divine King, but Jinshin had no chance of victory at all against the commander of the 7th Army, Yashulian. As a matter of fact, he did not even have the ability to flee from Yashulian. Not only was Yashulian a late Divine King, but every commander of the Heavenly Demon Religion had emerged from the Divine King of the Hall of Protectors. They had defeated all the Divine King experts in the Hall of Protectors to obtain their position. Yashulian was able to become the commander of the 7th Army, which naturally demonstrated her strength. Even among late Divine King experts, she was extremely powerful, let alone Jinshin in his current state. Even if he was in peak condition, he would not be able to fend off an expert like that. Yashulian made her way to Jinshin's side at a steady pace. She studied Jinshin carefully with her enchanting eyes, and a faint smile gradually appeared on her enchanting face. Her smile was like 100 flowers blooming. It was so charming that it seemed to have become the most beautiful painting in the world. Unknowingly, it also carried a fatal temptation to men. Little brother, you must be Jinshin, the person who's rumored to possess the Overgod's plaque. Yashulian crouched down beside Jinshin and spoke gently. Her voice seemed to contain a boundless demonic aura. She clearly did not say anything flirtatious, but these seemingly ordinary words were able to evoke the desire that a man should have. I never thought you could even kill a Divine King. Little brother, you sure have hidden yourself well. TSK. You managed to kill a Divine King in an open battle as an overgod. especially one who was only a step away from becoming a mid-divine king. If this news makes it out, it'll shake up the entire Saint's world, Yashi Lian continued. She giggled and radiated with charm. When her voice rang out in Jinshan's head, Jinshan, who had basically depleted the power of his soul, almost lost himself. He was enchanted by the charm in Yashi Lian's voice. Jinshan suddenly bit the tip of his tongue. The intense pain made him sober up slightly. He suddenly snapped open his eyes and stared at Yashi Lian. A sharp and cold light flashed through his eyes, and he said, "I never thought that you, the commander of the 7th Army, would appear right after I killed the elder of the Taoist sect of Calm Clouds. Yashi Lian, you must have specially come for me. I never thought that a mere over-god like me would actually attract the attention of the commander of the 7th Army." Yashi Lian laughed. With her innate charm, her smile seemed to be the most beautiful thing in the world. Jinshan immediately closed his eyes, no longer looking at Yashi Lian's face. Although her smile was beautiful, it was lethal. "Little brother, you've underestimated you far too much. I'm not the only one who's paying attention to you. The other 2 commanders, Yin Wuming and Luo Duo, are also paying attention to you. However, I am different from them. Those 2 men want to kill you as soon as possible. As for me," Yashi Lian paused when she spoke to this point. A demonic red light suddenly flashed in her enchanting eyes. The corners of her mouth revealed an enchanting smile. "I, your elder sister, have naturally come to save you." "Save me?" Jinshan opened his eyes. He stared at Yashi Lian emotionlessly and sneered. "Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child?" "I knew that you wouldn't believe me, so I'll show you that I'm not lying to you. I'll take you away right now." Yashi Lian giggled. With a wave of her hand, a powerful force immediately enveloped Jinshan. She took Jinshan away in a single instance. However, she did not take him in the direction of the divine kingdom of Pingtian, nor did she take him to the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion. Jinshan was unable to move at all under the powerful force of the late divine king. Even his cultivation had been sealed up by Yashi Lian. He had lost the ability to use his profound sword chi due to the depleted power of his soul. Right now, he was basically powerless before Yashi Lian. He was at her mercy. Jinshan did not despair. He obviously could not use the few soul recovery pills he had on him, so he just closed his eyes and did his best to recover the power of his soul. Naturally, he did not believe Yashi Lian. She definitely had other plans for her actions. He could still sense the ripples of energy from the battle between the divine kings in outer space. However, many people from the divine kingdom of Pingtian were busy with their own affairs at a time like this. They fought with their full strength, so they did not dare to become distracted. Naturally, it was impossible for them to spare any energy to observe the situation below. Even if someone learnt that he had been taken away by Yashi Lian, no one would come and save him. This was because none of the over 20 divine kings from the divine kingdom of Pingtian were Yashi Lian's opponent in individual battles, even if there were late divine kings among them. As a result, Jinshan was unable to receive any assistance from the divine kingdom of Pingtian right now. At this moment, Jinshan's face suddenly became even paler. He almost fainted. The power of his soul that he had just managed to recover after so much difficulty had suddenly vanished. There was basically nothing left. His powerful willpower prevented him from fainting. However, compared to how nervous he was when he first saw Yashi Lian, he was much more relieved now. Yashi Lian moved extremely quickly. A while later, she had already flown who knew how many kilometers. In the end, she took Jinshan to a gloomy cave and gently placed Jinshan on the cold, damp ground. "Little brother, look, didn't I save you? Don't worry. The place I chose is extremely well hidden. No one can find us. There's only the 2 of us here." Yashi Lian gently stretched her body in the cave. She radiated with endless charm as she stared at Jinshan flirtatiously. She seemed to want to steal Jinshan's soul away. Afterwards, Yashi Lian laid down on Jinshan gently. Basically half of her body was on top of Jinshan. She smiled faintly as she pressed her beautiful face to Jinshan's. Their faces were only a finger's width apart, so they were basically pressed together. At such a close distance, Jianxin could even sense Yashi Lian's faint breathing, let alone smell her fragrance. Hot air would spurt out from the tip of his nose with every breath, brushing against her face. Yashi Lian, you're already a late divine king, while I'm only an overgod. Even if you want to suck away the essence of others, you should find experts at the same level as you. Why do you need me? I probably won't be of any help to you with my current cultivation, right? Jianxin said calmly. He had already guessed Yashi Lian's intentions, so he was not surprised. Yashi Lian slowly slid her finger across Jianxin's face before moving to Jianxin's chest. She drew circles on his bloodied chest and smiled. Little brother really is smart. You actually know what I want to do. But you can't blame me. You need to understand that although I've saved you, I haven't saved you for nothing. I need you to pay me back. Little brother, your power just happens to be very strange and very powerful. Although I've never seen it before, my instincts tell me that it will be of great help to me. Chapter 1934. Jianxin sneered and mocked. You keep saying that you're going to save me, but in the end, you're still going to kill me. Is this what the commander of the 7th Army of the Heavenly Demon Religion does? Yashi Lian giggled. She leaned on Jianxin and gently twisted her body. She stroked her hair coquettishly, giving off endless charm. Lustful light flickered in her eyes as she slowly slid her slender hands across Jianxin's face. She said coquettishly, "Little brother, don't talk about me like that. I said I was going to save you, so I really did. Why would I kill you? After all, you've brought me so many benefits, so I obviously won't mistreat you. I'm just absorbing your energy and losing a little of my vitality. Moreover, I'll definitely treat you differently from other people. Do you know how I've absorbed the essence of other men in the past?" Before Jianxin could reply, Yashi Lian stared into Jianxin's eyes and continued. In the past, when I absorbed the essence of other men, I would press my hand against their heads. However, all of them ended up dead without exception. But for you, Big Sister will use gentle methods. I guarantee that when Big Sister absorbs your essence, not only will there not be the slightest bit of pain, it will instead bring you a kind of supreme happiness, allowing you to experience the true joy of being a man. Yashi Lian's voice was extremely seductive, as if it was filled with endless charm. Every single action and word of hers could incite the flames of desire in any man. Jianxin found it rather difficult to resist Yashi Lian's charm now that his soul was depleted. In particular, Yashi Lian's words seemed to drill into his head like a demon's voice, constantly reverberating through his head. It battered against his last shred of sanity as if it wanted to obliterate his consciousness. His blood flowed faster than it had ever been in his body. It was like a flame that he had buried deep within him was burning brighter and brighter. Little brother, you're the first man I've ever treated like this. Don't you think I'm treating you well? However, you don't have to worry too much. I can tell that your body is extremely powerful, and your recovery is something I've never seen before. As a result, you won't die after I absorb your essence. If I'm satisfied with your performance, I can even make an exception and take you under my wing as the only person who can serve me. Yashi Lian giggled as her eyes shone as she looked at Jianxin. Jianxin's recovery was extremely powerful. To her, he was a supreme grade cauldron that could allow her cultivation to increase rapidly. Yashi Lian, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. Since you can tell that my energy is extremely powerful, you obviously understand that it's not something a regular body can endure. Do you believe that if you try to absorb my energy, you won't benefit at all? Instead, you'll suffer great harm. In the end, you'll go for wool and come home shorn, Jianxin said. At the same time, he secretly panicked. When Yashi Lian had taken him with her earlier, he had used the last bit of his soul to reach into his space ring and shatter the jade talisman that Fairy Haoyue had left for him. This was Jianxin's only hope, his only chance at survival. Now, Yashi Lian was about to do something to him, but Fairy Haoyue still had not arrived. Jianxin struggled to remain calm, so all he could do was try his best to stall for time. There were a total of 5 regions on the boundless cloud plain. They were the eastern, southern, western, and northern regions, as well as the central region. Every region was extremely large and boundless. The Xiandao dynasty was one of the few ancient empires in the northern region. It occupied a place rich with resources, and its territory was extremely vast. Even among the few ancient empires in the southern region, the Xiandao dynasty's strength was enough to rank within the top 3. At this moment, the imperial capital of the Xiandao dynasty was holding a competition that only happened once every 10,000 years. Participants from various places in the Xiandao dynasty had gathered there, causing the imperial capital to be abnormally busy right now. The competition grounds in the center of the imperial capital were packed with people. Godhood experts fought intensely in several dozen huge arenas that were enveloped by barriers. And in the air above these martial arenas, there was a piece of land that was over 10 miles in radius. On this land, there were all sorts of exotic flowers and grasses, each one of which was priceless and extremely rare. They emitted an intoxicating fragrance, and it looked like a floating garden. A middle-aged man stood in the garden. He wore a dragon robe and had a dignified bearing. His eyes shone brightly, and he gave off the aura of the divine king. This person was the Holy Emperor of the Xiandao dynasty. Beside the Holy Emperor were 2 beautiful women with extraordinary temperaments. They did not seem very old, only in their 20s. The 2 women sat there casually, eating precious holy fruits and chatting as they watched the competition below. They completely ignored the Holy Emperor of the Xiandao dynasty. However, the Holy Emperor of the Xiandao dynasty was not sitting down. Instead, he stood beside the 2 women quietly. He was respectful, and he did not dare to say anything. "Sister Hao Yue, what do you think about the performance of the younger generation of our Xiandao dynasty?" One of the women took a bite of a fruit gently and giggled at the woman before her. Fairy Hao Yue glanced around casually and said, "Not bad. There are a few talented people who have a chance of reaching the same level as the Divine King." Fairy Hao Yue paused when she reached there. She looked at a young man in the sea of people below and said, "But Sister Tian Shuang, the disciple you've accepted is extremely impressive. He's basically unmatched among overgods. He probably already possesses the strength to make it onto the overgods plaque." The woman referred to as Tian Shuang smiled. "Of course. Sister Hao Yue, why don't you take a look at whose disciple he is? I've accepted a few disciples over the years, but they're all useless. Only this disciple called Man Yi can satisfy me slightly." At this moment, Tian Shuang said to Xiandao Shenwang, "Go call Man Yi over." "Yes, Ancestor," the emperor replied politely and immediately passed down the order. Very soon, a burly young man flew into the floating garden. He bowed towards Tian Shuang and Hao Yue politely and said, "Greetings, masters." "Greetings, seniors." His face was filled with respect from the bottom of his heart. "Man Yi, go to the central region and make it onto the Overgods plaque once the competition ends. Remember, I want your name to appear on it," Tian Shuang said to Man Yi indifferently. Tian Shuang said to Man Yi emotionlessly. Her tone was unquestionable, like she was a supreme ruler. She did not show any of the gentleness and friendliness she showed to Fairy Hao Yue. "Yes, master," Man Yi said politely. However, after a moment of hesitation, he said again, "Master, I have a presumptuous request. I heard that a person with the battle prowess to make it onto the Overgods plaque has appeared in a small divine kingdom in the southern region. His name is Jianshan, and it's rumored that he's extremely powerful. As a result, I want to go to the southern region and fight Jianshan before I go to the central region. I don't believe that such a person can appear in a backwater divine kingdom. I want to go and see him." Man Yu was very reluctant to accept Jianshan as soon as he mentioned him. He had not even made it onto the Overgods plaque, yet his name had already spread to the northern region. He, Man Yi, was also known for possessing the battle prowess of an overgod, but he was only slightly famous in the southern region. "Oh, is there such a thing?" Tian Shuang was startled. She immediately agreed and said aloud, Fairy Haoyue raised an eyebrow. Without even glancing at Man Yi, she said indifferently, "There's no need for you to go to the southern region. You're not on the same level as Jianshan." Tian Shuang cried out in surprise when she heard that. She stared at Fairy Haoyue in surprise and asked curiously, "Sister Haoyue, have you seen this person called Jianshan before? And when you say they're not on the same level, do you mean my disciple Man Yi is on a higher level? Or do you mean this person called Jianshan is on a higher level?" Just when Fairy Haoyue wanted to say something, her face suddenly changed. She said, "Oh no, the jade talisman I gave him is shattered. It's too far away from the southern region. I can't get there in a short amount of time. Sister Tian Shuang, please lend me your disc of heavenly ways." Chapter 1935. The woman known as Tian Shuang could not help but feel curious when she saw Fairy Haoyue's sudden change. She asked in confusion, "Sister Haoyue, what's happened for you to be in such a hurry? I've never seen such an expression appear on Big Sister Haoyue's face before." As she said that, Tian Shuang stood up as well. She gently extended a finger towards the depths of the imperial palace. With that, a streak of light immediately shot out from the forbidden grounds of the imperial palace. It moved extremely quickly, arriving before Tian Shuang with a flash. It was a white jade disc that was only a foot long. It flickered with complicated and profound inscriptions. It possessed the might of the world, as well as the power of laws. The disc of heavenly ways was a god artifact. In the saint's world, where even many infinite primes use supreme quality saint artifacts, the value of a god artifact was evident. Even though the disc of heavenly ways was only a supportive god artifact, its value was still extremely shocking. As a matter of fact, the effects of the disc of heavenly ways would far surpass offensive and defensive god artifacts at certain times. This was because the greatest use of the disc of heavenly ways was its ability to teleport. It could teleport people to an extremely large area. As long as one possessed the disc of heavenly ways, they could go wherever they wanted. Not only could they go to any location on a plane, but they could even teleport across planes. It was just that each teleportation across continents required a large amount of energy. And this consumption was something that even a godly king could not bear. "Sister Haoyue, here's a 3-color divine crystal." Tian Shuang passed the disc of heavenly ways to Fairy Haoyue. At the same time, she passed over a 3-color divine crystal that was only the size of a pinky finger. Fairy Haoyue accepted the disc of heavenly ways and directly embedded the 3-color divine crystal in the center. Immediately, a huge, illusionary map appeared from the disc. This illusory map actually included the 5 regions of the Cloud region. Through this illusory map, one could clearly see that the 5 regions were separated by a vast ocean. As the teleportation power spread out, Fairy Haoyue's body disappeared from the space garden. She had used the sky disk to leave the north. The battle between the divine kingdom of Pingtian and the heavenly demon religion continued in the southern region of the Cloud Plain. Jianshan lay on the cold, damp ground powerlessly in a hidden cave far away from the battlefield. He felt extremely dizzy from the depletion of the power of his soul. He almost fainted several times. However, he gritted his teeth and persevered. "Yaxilian, your body is too weak. You don't have what it takes to endure this power," Jianshan said through gritted teeth. He did his best to stall for time. Yaxilian smiled charmingly. She stared at Jianshan flirtatiously. "Little brother, you don't need to worry about me. As a 9-tailed heavenly fox, I obviously have ways to deal with this problem. May I ask if you've heard of balancing yin and yang? But it's fine if you haven't heard of it. Very soon, I'll let you experience the joy of yin-yang harmony. I can guarantee you that you'll fall deeply in love with it." Yaxilian laid on Jianshan gently as she slowly wiped away Jianshan's blood with a handkerchief. When her slender fingers came in contact with Jianshan's skin, it made Jianshan feel like he had been electrocuted. It was clearly a very normal skin contact, but when it came from Yaxilian, it was unbelievable. "My cultivation method is extraordinary. Even yin and yang harmonization is useless. Can your harmonization of yin and yang harmonize all the energy in the world? Jianchen continued to stall for time. Hee. How will I know if it works if I don't try? If it really doesn't work, I'll just give up. Yashi Lian blinked mischievously. Every word and action of hers was fatal to men. Even the most strong-willed people struggled to resist. She said coquettishly, "Little brother, you're trying to find a way to reject me. Am I not beautiful?" Yashi Lian gently twisted her body on Jianchen's body. Her clothes slowly slid off, revealing her snow-white skin. Jianchen bit down on the tip of his tongue. His tongue had already been bitten open. Under Yashi Lian's seduction and teasing, he was like a lone boat in a stormy sea. He was about to sink. Very soon, Yashi Lian was completely naked. Her devilish figure was completely exposed. She stood up and coquettishly asked, "Little brother, am I beautiful?" Jianchen sighed. There was no point in stalling now. He knew that Yashi Lian was about to do something to him. Just as Jianchen sank into despair, his eyes suddenly narrowed. He stared behind Yashi Lian without blinking. Unknowingly, a peerless beauty wearing a long white dress had silently appeared there. The woman stood there quietly with a faint smile on her face. She crossed her arms in front of her chest and supported her chin with one hand. She stared at the incomparably alluring scene in front of her with great interest. The woman's existence was like air. Even when she stood so close to Yashi Lian failed to sense her at all. The moment Jianchen saw the woman, he finally let out a sigh of relief. He said weakly, "Since you've come, why haven't you done anything yet? Why are you still in a mood to watch?" With that, Jianchen seemed to have lost all his strength. His head tilted to the side, and he fainted. "What? Who's come?" Yashi Lian, who was about to harvest the energy, could not help but become stunned when she heard Jianchen's words. She subconsciously looked behind her. Yashi Lian's face immediately paled in fright. She was shocked. Who are you?" Yashi Lian cried out. She had actually failed to discover a woman standing behind her at all. Fairy Haoyue smiled faintly and shook her head in great pity. She said, "What a pity! What a pity! I was so close to a spectacular show." However, Jianchen actually managed to last until now against such a beauty. I'm beginning to doubt whether he's a normal man or not. Yashi Lian became extremely stern. She immediately condensed a set of clothes made of energy to hide her body. She wanted to flee immediately. She was not stupid. There was definitely no one at the Divine King's level of cultivation who could appear behind her silently. Only primordial realm experts could do that. As soon as she thought about how the woman before her was a primordial realm expert, Yashi Lian was shocked. She had never thought that there would be such an expert behind Jianchen. "You little wench, don't you like showing off your body very much? Since you like showing off your body so much, I'll let you do it to your heart's content," Fairy Haoyue teased. However, her smile was rather cold. She extended a finger and sent a strand of the power of laws into Yashi Lian's body. It sealed up all of Yashi Lian's cultivation, causing the clothes condensed from energy to disperse on the spot. Afterwards, a streak of moonlight expanded from Fairy Haoyue, forming a domain that trapped Yashi Lian, immobilizing her. Afterwards, she vanished into the disk of heavenly ways with Jianchen and Yashi Lian. From the beginning to the end, Yashi Lian was unable to put up any resistance at all. She was captured easily. Before Fairy Haoyue, she did not even have the ability to flee. The battles on the several dozen platforms below continued to be intense in the imperial capital of the Xiandao dynasty in the northern region. There were countless spectators. At this moment, the space above the platforms suddenly twisted, and the white-clothed Fairy Haoyue appeared out of nowhere. The commander of the 7th Army, Yashi Lian, and the unconscious Jianchen also appeared with her. However, Jianchen was enveloped by gentle moonlight. The moonlight completely obscured his body, so no one could see him at all. As for Yashi Lian, she had been trapped by Fairy Haoyue. Not only was she immobilized, but her cultivation had been sealed as well. She was exposed before everyone. Their appearance naturally attracted the attention of everyone in the imperial capital. When everyone raised their heads and saw what was happening in the sky, all of their gazes gathered on Yaxu Lian. Many of them burned with desire. However, Fairy Haoyue, a primordial realm expert, did not receive any attention at all, which was extremely rare. Yaxu Lian, who had been trapped by Fairy Haoyue, felt both humiliated and furious. She could clearly feel countless burning gazes sweeping over her body in an unbridled manner. This caused her devastatingly beautiful face, which was as beautiful as a demon, to be filled with gloominess at this moment. After all, displaying one's body before a single person was completely different from displaying it before a large group of people. Yet now, she was completely naked. She was being stared at and admired by several million people below. In particular, these people were as weak as ants in her eyes. Even many of the arenas that were in progress were affected. Some of the contestants who were in the midst of fierce battles stopped one after another and looked up at the sky. Their expressions fell into a daze. "Sister Haoyue, what are you doing?" Tian Shuang stood up from her seat in the hanging garden as she stared at Fairy Haoyue blankly. She discovered that her sister had actually become so strange that she did not recognize her. She had actually done something so strange. Was this really the cold and proud Sister Haoyue from before?